Pedreño here at Lassian Williamson Racing Driver, and we are heading to the back Western Circuit.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to PSGL. George Morgan here, your commentator, alongside me, TK, who is going to be rounding off the season with me.
Down the inside,
Absolutely impossible season.
This is for the win between these two.
I'm on the edge of my seat.
He needs to get it done now.
Blakey will dive to the inside.
We're robust, we got our elbows out.
Ronard takes the lead.
Because here comes Alfie Butcher.
Can't really complain with that one.
It's not going to be easy. The pressure is on, of course.
Yarda Watmere is your champion.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to PSGL E-Series here for one last time in Season 6. We head off to Saudi Arabia to conclude the season. The championship has already been decided, but for second and below, there's still lots to play for. Of course, it's myself, Nathan Richards, in the commentary box, alongside TK, who hasn't been here on E-Series for a while, but we've lended him over from PCF1 for a stream. It's the final race of the season. We head off to Jeddah. Seems like a pretty nice race to be subbed in for.
It certainly does, and a pleasure as always to be back in the E-Series commentary box. It's a certainly different venture, let's put it that way, from the likes of PCF1, where it is such a team-dominated championship to the point where you will see those drivers working together, and it's quite refreshing in modern-day sim racing.
Yes, it certainly is, and I can't wait to see what sort of action we can get up to tonight, because we do have some quite a decent grid. I think one of the best we've had in many rounds. A few of our esports drivers taking part here tonight, but of course, Alpine are one to watch. They've got Danny and Otis who are looking to try and fight, of course, for fourth place in the standings. We'll have a look at the lineups before we head our way into the qualifying session. So as you can see, we've also got 3 qualifying bans tonight. Ferrari, they have one, I think it was for a late substitution in their driver lineup earlier, a couple of rounds back. That goes to Dylan Warren, who's making his second appearance, I believe, this season. He's alongside Riccardo Benzoni. And then VNT, they, I presume, forgot to put in their lineup today. So, fortunately, both of their drivers, Ryan and Race, have a qualifying ban as well. But just looking through at the grid, we have the likes of Danny and Otis, as I mentioned. We've got Keenan Ulash, once again, back over at Red Bull. Tamas Galt, he's appointing Tiger Hardy at R8G. So, once again, very strong drivers taking part, and it's around a track which tends to be used quite a lot in esports. So maybe that's also what it is. Maybe a bit of preparation for the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Jeddah is one of those circuits that I think pretty much consistently will be on that sim racing calendar going forward. Of course, we saw it quite infamously with what can only be described as one of the biggest crashes during 2020, well, the start of this year, actually 2025, but 2024 esports. So yeah, drivers and their teams will be using this as a massive data collecting opportunity to see how it goes before we hit that Christmas period.
Indeed, as we do have the standings on our screen as well, and of course, Ferrari wrapped it up last time out, but of course they pretty much had the championship probably since about halfway through the season when that gap kept going up and up. They're ahead of Red Bull, who are only 24 points ahead of R8G, so a battle for second is certainly on the cards. Then we go looking down at 4th, 5th and 6th. That's only 30 points separating FER, one of our community teams, and then Alpine and Williams. That will be a big battle for that place. Then we look further down, we have Veloci Academy in 7th, followed by McLaren Shadow in 8th. It's been a disappointing season for them. They're only around 9 points ahead of FRT. And then, of course, Venturi round off the top 10 in the standings. So, second is the main battle, but then we also have our 4th battle down to 6th, maybe 7th if Veloci Academy can somehow, get a 1-2, but I don't think that will be that likely. But yeah, I mean, I've got to say, there's some surprises here, isn't there, TK? I think FER, nobody expected them to be 4th. Ferrari, I would say it's a surprise that they're leading by that much. And then also Veloci Academy, who, of course, were Season 5 champions, who were very good all season long.
Yeah, it's been such a topsy-turvy season all round. I mean, if you look at the Ferraris, they've won, 7 of the last 11 rounds in the series. It's been quite possibly one of the most dominant displays that we've seen in E-Series going forwards, and to amass such a great quantity of points. I mean, they're, 120-ish points ahead of Red Bull Sim Racing, so that is going to give them a lot of confidence, especially in their junior drivers, who they've used quite a lot of the course of the season to head into what is essentially the big LAN events for their team. But we can't do this without talking about FVR. They're 8 points to the clear of Alpine Sim Racing, so they are at the moment on course to be what essentially would be best of the rest, let's put it that way, if we're discounting the podium positions.
Certainly, and I think being the best of the rest, when you've got R8G and Red Bull and Ferrari ahead of you and Alpine and Williams behind, I'll take that any day of the week if I'm FVR. Of course, they've had a bit of a lacklustre past here in E-Series, only ever finishing the highest of 8th place, and they was here 3 seasons prior. They finished, I think, 8th, 10th and 9th in the past, and this season they're on for their best by quite a margin. But even if they drop behind both Alpine and Williams, it's still 6th, which, the team at the start of the season will be biting our hands off at hearing that. So, a really good job by FVR so far this season, as we are just about to head into qualifying session, the first qualifying session of the evening, of course. As you can see, there's Sim Racing Centre sponsor boards absolutely everywhere. So, as usual, a big thank you to SRC for helping fund this season. Of course, without those guys, as you all know already, we would not be here today. So, a big thank you to the team over there for sponsoring the season. And finally, we can see a car on track. It's Aaron Raminguez for FVR. Of course, we can see our 3 drivers who have got those quali bands already retired. So, TK, this is an important session because you don't want to be one of the 2 drivers going out, do you?
No, not at all, especially with so many qualifying bans, as you alluded to, being handed out amongst the grid, and quite possibly, more importantly, one of them going to the Ferraris, who, yes, they've already won the season, but they'll still want to put on a strong performance to finish off the 12th round here in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, both others going to the Haas cars of VNT. They've had a bit of I don't want to say a lackluster season, but it's certainly not been the greatest of expectations for them in the grand course of things. So they've got their work cut out for them heading through.
Yeah, they certainly have. And I think this season's been definitely one of the most obscure ones in the sense of the standings in general. There's so many different teams that are not where we expect them to be. I think even, I know FRT and Venturi are down in 9th and 10th, but the fact they're that close to McLaren and not that far away for Veloce is a big surprise. So position, not a surprise, but the points gap certainly is. So hopefully next game, because I presume there is not going to be series this game, unfortunately. If we do come back for next game, of course, I think once again it's going to be a massive change around in who's where, because you never know what to expect with E-Series, and that's what makes it, in my opinion, the best team event on the game by a country mile. So that's probably me being biased, but it's truthful. Nothing beats E-Series. But we do have our 2 FVR cars heading back into the pit lane, and then hopefully in around a minute and a half time, we'll see a few cars head out on a set of the soft compound of tyre, TK.
Yeah, I have noticed Dylan Warren, who is of course serving his qualifying ban, opted for what was essentially going to be the mediums, I'm assuming, if they wanted to go out for their preliminary run, if they were even able to do that under the rules and regulations that we find ourselves here with E-Series. But as you said, 17 drivers at the moment. There's going to be 2 of them going out in Q1. This is either going to be a bit of a long slog Q1 where we kind of know who's going to be heading out of the session, or we're going to have a fight right down to that last minute or the last 30 seconds to see who actually survives their way through.
Yeah, certainly. It's going to be... I think you'll see a couple of names down there. I'd say probably anyone from 13th and below. You're looking at both, both of the cars that go out, probably going to be one of both of, 2 of those drivers, I think 13th and below, because most of the time you put in a good lap at the start of the session, you're going to stay there in Q1. It's so little that see someone go up to like 7th and drop out. It's realistically not going to happen. So the main battle will be for those that don't get that first good run in or don't have that pace. So it's going to be a very interesting Q1, that is safe to say. As I have seen a couple of people asking about why VNT have a qualifying ban for both. That's because they didn't submit their lineups. But I'll be honest and probably say they forgot to. But I mean, it matter. It's not like they're fighting for that much in their championship, so we'll have to see what they can do from the back. And luckily, I clicked onto Ulash at the perfect time as he's heading out onto circuits. And we know, TK, this first sector, turn 4 is a very big turn, well, it is a big turning point, but it is also a very big corner on the track in the sense of so easy to make a mistake and so easy to lose your race there completely.
Oh, very much so. And I think you could almost say that about 90% of the corners here in Jeddah, where it is going to be millimetre perfect for every lap of the Grand Prix, because there's either obstacles or other cars that are going to be coming at you at almost the speed of sound, trying to distract you, make the pass, especially when we get into that sort of race situation. But you've got to remain focused and avoid the barriers, avoid other cars, and just work your way through. And it alludes to this massive crash that we all saw back at F1 Sim Racing, where it was just two didn't go into one quite neatly.
Yeah, definitely. And with this track, it means that everybody all piles up together. No avoiding it. Once one or two go in and end up in a barrier, all those following through end up in, in the same fate, unfortunately. So I'm sure there'll be some sort of carnage on the opening or the ending laps of this race. But we do have most of our cars now out on track, getting their first runs underway. Just both of the. And we've got one of the Alpines, one of the Williams cars, and then we have got finally that McLaren heading out of the pits, and then we can, of course, get underway for the first laps in this qualifying session. Of course, qualifying around here is very important because we know, as this game has been so far, overtaking is a gift. It's not easy to do like you could do on F1 23 and F1 24 especially. So you've got to be at the top of qualifying. And Q1, you're one of the top teams like Ferrari or Red Bull, RHG. This is a perfect opportunity to practice because you know you're going through. So it's about just practicing that peak consistency and taking that through into the ending parts, qualifying.
Yeah, it's been a really interesting stat to kind of track over the course of the season. If you look at the general trends, 9 times out of 10 over the course of the C-Series, it's been the drivers that finished first or second for the most part. There's a couple of kind of loose ends, shall we say, over the course. But the majority of drivers that start on pole either go on to win it or finish second, or thereabouts somewhere. So it's such an advantageous thing to do, even though we do see these long races, the overtakes that are somewhat possible with the DRS, but you get such a notable advantage for doing realistically very little.
Yeah, certainly. I think this is one of those tracks where a lap time could look insane, but in terms of actually what you're doing on track, it's not that much different to what everybody else is doing. Sometimes it's just that like couple of degree difference going into a corner, which doesn't take a lot for a driver to do, but it's about learning those specific things. What can you do in a corner to find 200ths of a second? If you can do that over 27 corners, you're building up a nice bit of time. But let's see what the first couple of laps will be looking like at the start of Q1. Of course, the first car to cross the line will be Ulash Azildrim. Has had a very consistent qualifying, has always been up in the top 5, top 6 in the races this season. Let's see what he can do for his first lap of the session. Up to the line, it's a 25.957. Next, it will be Takubi, but he chooses to go back into the pit lane, doesn't complete that lap. So next to cross the line will be one of the FER cars, which will be Aaron Raminguez. Also, I think, looking like he's going to go back in. No, he continues on, but I think there was a bit of a mistake on the exit there for him.
Yeah, not the finest run through. There was a couple of purple sectors that were dotting about here, there, and everywhere, but I can tell you he's gone purple in the first and the second sector. There's no prizes for winning this because, of course, it is the one, the only Otis Lawrence.
Indeed, as Nelson Alves goes quickest to 25.913. A nice lap from him. Then we have up to the line Diego Zorzo goes up into third. Let's have a look at Otis Lawrence as Keen Gonendorp goes fastest for Red Bull. What can Otis muster up? It's a brilliant lap time. It's a 25.5, 3/10 clear of Red Bull currently.
Absolutely spectacular lap as Philippe Prejneda slots himself into what was third, as Thomas Gall now takes that away and goes second himself for Kick Saubers. But at the moment, Lawrence still stands atop by just shy of 1/10 of a second, which may not sound like a massive gap, but it is a massive gap.
It is, especially around Jeddah. That is a really nice gap for Otis, and if it can carry on into Q2 and Q3, pole position might already be his as Szymon Lakomski goes P6 for McLaren at 25.933. And we have a couple more cars left to cross the line. It was Alvaro Caraton going 6th fastest. We have Danny Berejnay up into P3. Then we also have, I think, Pasquale Ranieri, who I don't know if he's on a second lap because he did have an invalidation on that first one. So we'll see shortly if he is going to continue on, but I believe he is lifting off there. So he won't be carrying on with that lap. But so far, lots of pressure onto FRT. Both of their drivers without a lap. Gabel had an invalidation. Takubi just went back in and went back out again. I'm not exactly sure why. And then, of course, Pasquale without a lap as well. So big pressure on those three, but not the start that FRT want, because even though they're going to be stuck down at the bottom of the standings, they have an opportunity to get ahead of McLaren if they outscore them by 9 points. So you don't want to be having both your drivers out in Q1 at all.
Absolutely, and you've got to get through to at least Q2. Whilst I appreciate starting in the pack, especially at Jeddah, may not be that beneficial. And, if you start towards the back, you can run maybe a bit of an alternate strategy or maybe try something a little bit inventive. The higher up you start, I don't want to sound too much like Will Buxton here, but the higher up you start, the better chance you have.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, you are sounding like Will Buxton, and it's not like I can even answer with much there, because I just say, yes, it's true. But no, that is a good point. And I think Jeddah's one of those tracks where qualifying matters so much. I mean, I wouldn't say it goes as extreme as Monaco, but I'd say Hungary level, Zandvoort level, it's got to be there, because overtakes are scarce on this game. This track does promote overtaking a little bit more than others, but it's the fact of you've got to push it so hard. You've got to sacrifice the whole lap of burning your battery, or you've maybe got to go for something a bit outrageous on strategy to get that offset in order for you to push forward. So I think that's another good thing to talk about, strategy. Around here, you get quite a lot of option because the tyre wear's not that high, I believe. If I'm wrong, then I'm sorry, but I believe tyre wear's not that high, so you can sometimes afford to go for a bit of a more longer strategy rather than one of the shorter ones and go for a 2-stop. It's probably going to be a 1-stop, but when do you pit? That's the question. You've got lots of options.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we potentially see a 2-stop being thrown into the mixer, especially at this sort of stage of the season with those drivers that may not have much to lose. I mean, if you look at Ferrari, and this is what I'm going to kind of make an example of, so to speak, I think they're going to do a lot of testing here today. They're going to run maybe an alternate strategy, maybe see something out and just see how it works, because they've got an opportunity where literally the championship does not matter to them anymore. They've got a gifted opportunity to race against 18 spectacular drivers who are all of esports pace and put something to the test that might be a bit of a long shot.
Yeah, definitely. As we do see Takubi go 13th, not the best lap from him, but does go ahead of Riccardo Benzoni, which is certainly a surprise to see him down in 14th. That is really low for Riccardo. But then again, I think it was back in Monza we saw him have a poor qualifying. I think he went out in Q1, if I remember correctly. So maybe qualifying hasn't been his strongest point as of recent, but I remember in the race he was absolutely flying, easily the quickest car in the race for sure. As we do have Ulash Yildirim out on track, P10 currently. It wasn't a good lap for him in terms of his standards. He's 4.5 tenths nearly off of the back of Otis Lawrence, so he has to get an improvement, which I'm sure he can do. I'm sure he'll go up towards P3, P4, but still pressure on him, and he can't risk not going out at this point. He's got to. But then again, with him going out, Luca Rapassa also on a 0.9. Is there a risk on Tycho Lukomsky and Karanson potentially?
I think it's that guessing game now. Where do you set that expectation of a Q1 knockout to be, especially with only 2 drivers going out? Do you think that, essentially, how many drivers got there? 7 drivers are going to be able to set a 0.9 or above? Is that where we're kind of looking at it from that perspective? Are we going to see the likes of Zorzo, Tachubi, Benzoni improve by 3, 4, 5 tenths to be able to jump themselves up high enough to then put Hardy Lukomsky maybe at risk?
I mean, realistically, they've got to be able to do that, haven't they? I think if you want to be competitive, you've got to be able to do, what everybody else is doing, and most of the grid down to 11. So 11 drivers out of them all, out of 17, have all done a lap time which is a 0.9 or better. So realistically, you should be aiming for that. But the cutoff probably will be around a 0.9, maybe a 0.8 at a big push, but I doubt so indeed. But we do have everybody on track. Takubi, I think, might as well already call it quits here, because he went out for a very, very out-of-sync strategy. He's now wheeling back in with 50 seconds to go, so he's got no chance of going out and getting another lap. And with there being Benzoni and Ramirez, who are only, half a tenth off him, and then Gabor and Pasquale to set laps, I'm confused why he chose to do that strategy, because he's now not made the most of the conditions.
I wonder if he was hoping for maybe a bit of clean air and it hasn't necessarily worked to his favour, but you were saying that cutoff is going to be about a point, like potentially 0.8. It's quite going to have to be a 0.9 just of how many drivers there are in and amongst the standings. I mean, the cutoff now realistically is anywhere between a 0.9 and a 26.1. I really cannot tell which way this is going to swing. If anyone invalidates here, that's going to be them out. That I'm certain of. Yeah,
definitely is. Gabor is invalidated. That's him out. Gabor is out. probably put a curse on him there, TK, but now it's all down to Pasquale Ranieri, of course, without a lap in this session, made a big mistake in his first lap. I think most drivers are safe now because, of course, Gabor making that grave mistake on his. Ulas should be more than fine as he also makes his way up to the line. What can he do for Red Bull? Goes into third. I said he'd be up and around there. And he certainly is, as the next car to cross the line will be Gabor, but of course no lap for him. So all pressure lies on Pasquale Ranieri. He sets his lap and has to watch everybody else put theirs in afterwards. This is a big moment for the Veloce Academy driver.
It absolutely is. The pressure is well and truly on his shoulders because he's got to get it right. And it probably wouldn't matter if he drops a couple of attempts here. Let's, take a step back and have a look at it from the bigger picture. Getting through is more important than getting the fastest time. He just wants to make sure that he even just jumps, say, Ramirez, for example, or Benzoni, as Gabor, of course, cannot set a lap.
He certainly cannot. Pasquale Ranieri goes 11th. That would put him safe because of Takubi down in 14th without another effort at looking to go higher. Raminguez goes 14th as also goes into 12th. What can Benzoni do? He goes into 7th. So 16th it is for Takubi. Double elimination for FRT. Now, I know that they are statistically one of the worst teams here, but I don't think they had it on the cards to go out in Q1 with only 2 opportunities available.
No, and that is a real heartbreak for both their drivers there. They are quite literally, there's 2 of them that had opportunities to make it through. There was 2 spots that were unguaranteed to be exits, and somehow they've had the world's worst hand of poker and collectively got, well, I was going to say jack all, but yeah.
Well, you're not wrong, are you, really? I think Gabor, maybe lack of preparation, maybe not too in tune with the track, but Takubi, I think that was all down to his strategy in qualifying. It didn't seem quite... I mean, I don't know why he did it, because in Q1, he went out around 10 minutes like everybody else, went into the pits after his first lap and stayed in there for like 4 minutes, went out with 3 minutes to go, so he pretty much put himself off sync. So not quite sure why Takubi went for that strategy, but unfortunately it doesn't optimum place in Q2. So we go again, of course, another 15 minutes. 5 cars get eliminated. That's 11th down to 15th. From the lap times we saw in Q1, this session, we're going to lose some big names, I think, because I think we had, 10 drivers on a 0.9? Then we obviously had about 4 or 5 on a 0.8, 0.7. So this is a big session for many. I think eyes, you've got to be looking at McLaren. McLaren, I'm thinking Racing Bulls, FVR, there we go, I get my words out. And then Williams, because these points for them, a top 10 is valuable so much because they're battling for 4th. There's 20 points separating 6 drivers, pretty much.
I would not be surprised here if that cutoff sits around a 0.7 or a 0.8, and that's quite how close we're going to see the margins. Because obviously, let's think about it. Lawrence at a 0.5-ish, just above a 0.5. The cutoff last time was about a 0.26-1, but if we exclude Tachubi, he didn't have the best run. It would have been the 0.9s. I think we're going to see the 0.8s as the cutoff now.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's got to be that at a minimum, and that's going to be testing a lot of drivers' abilities because some of them did, of course, get their second laps in and get a good time, but some of them were still only in the 0.9s on their second laps. So definitely a lot of pressure on a lot of drivers. We have pretty much half of the grid, 3/4 of the grid out on track at the moment, looking to set a lap time on the board, of course. A team we haven't talked that much about so far is R8G. They've got Tycho Hardy and Tamas Gal. Now, I looked in the chat and I saw Tator say this might be the first Tycho/Tamas R8G lineup ever. And not what he means by that, because there's no way they haven't ever worked together in a team event. And I believe Tator because of, well, his last season was part of Haas. So I think he has a good enough knowledge to tell us that. But that's quite odd. Tycho and Tamas never working as a team.
I guess it's part and parcel when you have these sort of team aspects to races and to championships where you have the ability to sub drivers in, out, depending on what their strongest tracks are, let's put it that way. So maybe it's just had a situation where Hardy and Gal have never really found a track that they are compatible between them in.
I suppose it depends. I mean, Tamas, we know that isn't the best when it comes to race pace. Maybe it's the opposite for Tycho Hardy and they're never going to balance. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. But Tycho is on a lap currently. He makes his way through Sector 1. See what he can do here. Of course, it's a decent run down to the end of the first sector. It was going to be a 31.916. So I could sit here and say, what a sector, or that was poor, but I don't know. I presume you have more telemetry available to you, TK, on your screen?
I do. I've got all the sector times. It's currently Danny Berezhny that's gone fast in the first sector, 31.613 to himself, and that's immediately stolen by his teammate Otis Lawrence, a 5.93.
Very good sector one. Otis has been... I think the first sector's been brilliant for him all evening. I mean, he set a really good one in Q1. He did the same at the... done the same so far here in Q2. So maybe that is it for him. Maybe it's that one sector where he has such an advantage. It doesn't really matter what he can do in Sector 2 and Sector 3. If you can build up an advantage in Sector 1, you've got to hold it through the rest.
You say that. Alpine at the moment have swapped Sector 2 purple sectors again. Berezhny took it. Lawrence has just stolen it off him as well. So this is something we've seen, especially in PCF1, that they have been so strong in qualifying. It's just that mental endurance of the race they haven't mastered yet.
Yep, certainly. And that's something that they'll pick up over time, of course. Both Otis and Danny recently joining the team, so you know they're going to have time to gel and make sure everything can work perfectly. Yes, Otis Lawrence does back out and goes in. That's I wouldn't say he's odd because most of the other drivers did the same, but would have expected him to complete that because it would have been a decent lap.
He was purple in the first, purple in the second. I didn't see any major mistakes when I was running on board with him, but maybe there was something that just dropped his lap time through the floor. We'll be able to have a look and find out. You know what? You keep going. I'm going to find out what exactly happened.
Oh, we're going to speak to him?
No, I'm going to watch his stream.
Ah, good idea. That is clever. Stream sniping here in PSGL. Okay. I don't recommend it for anybody because sometimes stream sniping doesn't end in the best fashion. But no, TK will find out what's gone on. We do have a car on a lap. I don't know if it's an actual lap. No, it's not. It's Diego Zorzo. He's just, I believe, heading back towards the pit lane. So, of course, it's been an interesting evening for him so far. His qualifying's not been at the top level of things, but he's got himself through to Q2. That's one of the main things, is getting through and having that chance to go once again for the top 10, of course. FER using a brand new lineup. I've seen Aaron take part, I've seen Diego take part, but I don't think I've seen them take part together. So we'll see how that works. For these two, as Diego has a slight tap to the wall, and that's where we saw him make a mistake early on. So maybe that corner is his Achilles heel around this circuit. We also have Filip Presneda, who's heading through into the final corner. He'll also, I presume, be heading back to the pit lane, and then we'll see what he can manage to do later on in this session. Have you found any information, TK, or are you still trying to look what's gone on?
So I'm having a look through what I can see from his screen at the moment. That might be the truth tell. It looks like it could have been a new set of tyres that he's gone on to, trying to then essentially do 2 new tyre runs at the end. I'm just waiting for confirmation. Yeah, he swapped on to use tyres right at the last minute. So he was running rather well, but I think he wanted the time element in his favour to then get 2 fresh set runs in.
Well, I suppose if that works, it works, doesn't it? I mean, I'm not going to doubt it because he did a brilliant job in qualifying pretty much 99.9% of the time. We do have now more cars heading out onto track to set their first laps in Q2. Of course, the laps from Danny, Tycho and Kian are non-representable whatsoever. They're very far off the pace of we'll be having here in Q2. So pretty much any lap you've got doesn't matter. So everybody's back on a fresh, clean slate of getting their first good lap on the board. And then, of course, if you need to, looking to improve on it. And sometimes around a track like this, it's difficult because you tend to kind of... I mean, the track evolution I don't think matters that much around this session in Q2. If I'm wrong, tell me, but I don't think it does. So the first lap you normally do isn't always easy to find time afterwards, is it? You kind of hit your peak sometimes after like one lap, and then you kick yourself because you can't find anything in the second lap, and that sometimes can knock your confidence.
It's sometimes a bit of both. So track evolution will always matter. Let's, break down the fundamentals. There'll always be more rubber. The track will be ever so slightly warmer, especially Saudi Arabia night race. Track temperatures only sat at about 24 degrees at the moment. So, if we look at F1 circuits, roughly around 30, 35 track temperature is what we're typically used to. So there will be more rubber for them to grip to. But you're absolutely right. That mental element of I've done such a nice run here. Either I've backed out of it or I've completed it to the line. You're then trying to chase something that essentially was never there. Even for Lawrence, who interestingly didn't set a delta. And I wonder if that's why he didn't come across the line even just to set a delta. He didn't want to have something to chase through every corner.
That could be the case. I mean, hopefully, if he takes the top throw, we can ask him in the interview afterwards. But that could certainly be a valid opinion. We've seen many drivers say that in the past, that sometimes they don't want to have that delta to chase it. More pressure on them, and I know it's a bit of a silly little thing, but if it makes you quicker not to do it, then don't do it. I mean, that's part of the game. You've got to try and gain as much time as you can, and the mental element at this level matters more than the physical element, in the sense of everybody on this grid can hit peak laps. They can all do a world record lap, but about being able to do that all the time and being able to push beyond those limits. So you've got to do what makes it best for you. As we still have Aaron Ramirez on a lap at the moment, we'll stick on board with him for the final setup, and we'll see what he can muster up on the board. Of course, he'll probably go quickest. If not, I'd be very, very surprised. But of course, Aaron's only been here a couple of times this season. I think took part in PSGL PCF3. So anything here for him in the top 10 would be a bonus.
Oh. Well, 25.990. It's still slightly off mark of what we expected to be that cutoff to be. Jules Yildirim goes fastest, 25.662 for the Red Bull outfit. And at the moment, as you said, yeah, Aaron set a good lap time there. That would have been solid in Q3 and definitely was enough to get him through. I think he's going to have to improve on his final run, though. He's going to have to find maybe a 10th and a half is where my estimation is going to go. I think Benzoni, 851 in the sort of region. That's going to be the cutoff, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a nice lap from Ricardo, and probably going to be something that he'll need to improve on.
Yeah,
we'll definitely be looking at that in terms of going out in at the end of Q2. Nelson Alves goes into second place at 7.24 for him. What about his teammate, Alvaro Caraton? Goes into third, only 20 thousandths, separating the two. As Tamas Gal goes quickest, a 5.13 from him. A very nice lap. And Otis Lawrence goes nearly a 10th quicker. Anything anyone can do, he can do better. As he goes top with a 4.19. At this point, can anybody challenge Otis Lawrence? We think someone set a good lap, and he blows it out the park.
That is just simply stunning from Otis Lawrence. A 25.419. That puts him 94 thousandths of a second clear of Tamas Gal and a further 243 thousandths clear of Jules Yildirim. So there's a massive margin there for drivers to improve. And actually, as we see all the sort of sector times coming in, Benzoni on the 25.8, it is going to be the, 25.798 at the moment. So pretty much 25.8, as I was saying, is going to be that cutoff at the moment.
It is, and we have got some big names down there. I mean, Luca Rapassa has been brilliant in the past. He's one of those that are making his way into the spot to be in an esports seat in the future, I'd imagine. You know, his pace has been brilliant, and he's getting better every season, every time he drives a race. So, surprising to see him down in P12 as a driver that's developing. Riccardo Benzoni, also a surprise. I'd expect to see Ferrari in the top 10. So, he's going to have to find some time there. And then, of course, Philippe Presneder, a driver that has been round forever. It seems like I've seen him race in every single team. He's been in every single kart. He's now in McLaren, and he's 13th. He will definitely be looking to go higher than that for sure. And then both FVRs, 14th and 15th. That is not where they want to be, considering they're defending that P4 ahead of P5 and 6, that being Williams and Alpine. They don't want to be starting this race near the back, because 14th and 15th, it's not that much different to 16th and 17th, is it?
No, not in the greatest of fashions. I'm just watching here Tamas Gal, who's been weaving, drifting, you name it, on his return laps to the pits here, just trying to maybe have a bit of fun, or maybe just kind of pass the time as they crawl back to pit road, making sure they get there in one piece. But it's interesting to keep an eye on all the times they're coming in. ULAS has started the fun game of who's going to retire first, and at the moment the driver that sits in P4 sets, essentially, this is going to be the cut-off time as it continues falling down the leaderboard as to more and more retirees.
I'd say Shimon can also retire, but I'd say Key and Dan, they have to go again. I mean, Key into Tycho is 70,000, not that much at all, and then of course Ricardo's only half a tenth behind that. So I'd say Key and Dan have to go again. Shimon up should be safe and sound heading into Q3, but then again, we could see some surprises. Maybe that track evolution is higher than we thought, as Otis Lawrence calls it quits in the pit lane on his 4.19. That is a superb lap from him. And one thing I've noticed, only one person, bar Otis Lawrence, has beaten that lap from Q1, and that's Tamas Gal. I'm sure Otis's lap in Q1 was like a 5.5, 5.6. Nobody else is near that. That is insane.
No. It's been a spectacular run from him in the first and now second qualifying sessions, and it proves it that only one other driver is within touching distance. But I'm going to make a bit of a bold prediction, and I'm encouraging those watching along at home to also come into chat and make their bold predictions. Because I'm going to say Gordon Dorp's time is good enough to get through to Q3 here. And let us know in the live chat who you think, A, who you think is going to be safe, and B, who you're here supporting as well.
Let us know. I mean, we haven't spoke much with the chat, unfortunately, evening. So let us know, guys, who you're here to support and who you think will be safe heading into Q3 as Kian exits the pit lane very quickly, wants to get on with things. And then Tamashgal as well, out on track. That is a surprise. He chooses that. Well, I presume he knows he's safe, but maybe he just wants to get another lapping. Maybe get prepared for Q3. As we also see, yeah, everybody 6th day and go out. Lekomsky also goes out as, that means well, if we didn't have a restart, we definitely have one there because Tamashgal has been given a 5-place penalty. Doesn't matter at all. As Danny Berejne also opts to go out. So, Ulash Ildrim and Otis Lawrence, the only cars to go out. So is Ulash here, risking things.
Well, I think almost certainly, it's going to be a very close grid. I mean, Yona Martins coming in the YouTube chat just saying my prediction that Gordon Dorp's time is going to be safe is not fast enough. I'm assuming that's what he's referring to, and not calling us slow. But
we are though, aren't we?
Speak for yourself then. No, I'm absolutely atrocious at any racing game. But it's going to be a very, very close Q2, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're going to see some surprises. I mean, the gaps so far are insane, especially between P3 and P11. That's what, 2 and a bit tenths between between those many positions. So, big surprises, yes. How many, I don't know, but I think we could definitely lose a couple of big names here. Rapasa and Benzoni have big pressure on those because they kind of need to be going through, don't they, really, for their pace.
They certainly do. I can give you a fun fact here, Nathan, before we get going for the final runs. The gap between P1 and P3 is greater than the gap is from P3 to P15.
Oh, well, it actually is. Oh, my. That is a great bit of number crunching. That is insane as well. Oh, my. I mean, that is something. That just shows... I think it shows the level of competitiveness and the level of dominance by Otis Lawrence does, how quick he is compared to everybody else on the grid. But we do have cars on track. The first one is Kian Gernendorf, and I presume Jona's saying he don't think that's fast enough. We'll see, because he's got to be angry if he doesn't get any improvements. Either way, I think, here.
Well, he's improved in the first sector already. The cut-off was a 160 thousandths of a second quicker than his previous attempt. So the Red Bull is certainly finding some rails here in Saudi Arabia.
That is safe to say. As we continue our way on down to the end of Sector 2, we'll see what Kian can find in this middle sector, of course, as you say. Just over a tenth and a half in Sector 1. What's it going to be in Sector 2? Just under 2 tenths. So he's looking to be on par with the rain where Tamashgal is. So maybe that risk for Ulash Ildrim is there. If everybody else can find this time, maybe Ulash could be in a spot of bother as these laps all come flying in. So into the final corner goes Kian Gernendorf, a nice entry and exit of turn 27. And I think, TK, that corner there, the final corner, is going to be a big talking point for many drivers on their laps.
It's going to be, indeed, as a purple middle sector as well for Kian. So he has found a considerable amount of time, puts himself in the 25.5s and splits the grid nicely between Berejne and Gal. Ramirez cannot... Sorry, I've absolutely butchered that name, but Aaron doesn't improve. Ricardo Benzoni stays 12th as well.
Indeed, yep. Ricardo had an invalidation, as we do see Tycho Hardy go 9th. Caraton potentially could be at risk of elimination as Tamashgal goes quickest. A 4.02 for the R8G driver. Where can Caraton go? He goes into 3rd. Next across the line will be, I think, Luca Rapasa. He goes up into the top 5 for Veloci Academy. That knocks out Tycho Hardy for R8G. That's a big, big thing for them, especially with their battle with Red Bull as Diego Zorzo can't find time. And Philip Presneder as well stays in 13th place. So, Pasquale Ranieri goes through by 0.000 milliseconds.
Now, I don't want to brag here, Yona, but I did say that a 5.722 would have been quick enough. And it was by... Oh, let's do some maths here. Is that 7
Oh,
milliseconds?
7.22 you mean?
8 milliseconds? A 7.22
Yeah,
was
you
what
said
Kian Gordendorf had.
5.72 and I got confused.
The 25.722 is what Kian Gordendorf had before the final runs.
Right.
I'm just saying that would have been quick enough to get through to Q3.
It would have been by, what, 9? Was it, you say 9 milliseconds? Was it?
Yeah, 9 milliseconds. Not by much, but it would have been enough.
I mean, that's the margins in this game. I mean, look at that. Pasquale and Tycho, literally nothing separates them, genuinely. Like, factually nothing. Which is insane. And that, I suppose, is heartbreak for Tycho Hardy because, I mean, losing 1 millisecond, like, that's got to be luck, surely. I mean, with the delta and the way the game works. I mean, that is minuscule.
Well, it's not even losing 1 millisecond. It'll be that he set the lap second.
Yeah, true. Good point. But, I mean, that is insane, isn't it? I mean, 3 tenths between the top 10. 2.5 between the top 6. There's lots of pressure going through into Q3, but of course, we lose both of the FVRs, a Ferrari, a McLaren, and an R8G, and FVR there will be kicking themselves because both Williams are through into Q3, and both of the Alpines are through into Q3, which really harms their efforts of finishing 4th. I mean, we do have Q3 coming up, but we'll quickly dabble at the standings quickly, and just quickly show for people that are joining in how big this battle is for 4th. The gap there is only around 30 points between 4th and 6th, so FVR, pressure is on for them.
Yeah, it's going to be incredibly close to make their way through the season and for this final round here in Jeddah, because I think there's not a better circuit to head to that is going to quite literally describe all or nothing.
Yeah, that's literally what it is. There's no other way around it for all of these drivers. But now the battle for pole position gets intense because we've narrowed it down to the 10 best, and these guys are the best. So, I mean, it's hard to pick a driver here, isn't it, to go for pole? I mean, who would you be looking at the moment, TK? I mean, there's many names.
Do I go for the obvious answer and say Otis Lawrence?
You could do. It means I have to do more of a task to figure something out.
Well, I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I'm going to go for the obvious answer and say Otis Lawrence.
Who do I go for? I mean, Otis would be the option, but do I go for something a little bit out? You know what? I'm going to go for Tamas Gal.
Yeah.
Tamas Gal, because he went first in Q2. So, I mean, second in Q1, first in Q2. That's just the opposite of Otis Lawrence.
That is pretty much, yeah. It's going to be an interesting one. I'm all for and still believe that any one of these 10 drivers could pull out an absolute blinder here in Saudi Arabia and take pole position, because there is an incredibly talented grid this evening.
There is. And I mean, Jeddah is one of those tracks where somebody out of nowhere just puts a lap in and you just sit there and think, how the hell have you done that? Because no one can realise how they've done a lap like that. Is what Jeddah can bring. As I mean, we are just clutching at straws here because nobody else is out on track, and it's kind of yes, we have to just keep talking and finding words to say. It won't be long until.
Chat?
But we could do, as we have Zalan saying, "Let's go Hungary." I mean, Hungarian drivers we have 2. I think that'd be Tamas and Danny. I hope I've not offended and forgotten anyone.
I've got to think through to who was knocked out in Q1
Philip
and Q2
Hungarian.
now.
No, he's not. Is he Slovakian?
I am not going to make any assumptions there because I do not know him well enough.
I'll have a look on Google on there.
This is why we need George in his spreadsheet, because he's got every single one with a flag next to it.
Where Philip's?
I got most of them for PCF1. I don't have stats for EC.
Slovakian. I was correct. Boom, get in.
Ah, very nice.
Well, at least that's what it says on the driver database, so I hope I'm correct.
What driver database are you looking at?
It just says driver database powered by The Race. Philip Pritchard, F1 Esports Series, nationality Slovak.
Ah?
So, there we go. I mean, he's made it onto the driver database. Get in there, Philip.
Fair enough. I did not know that was a thing.
I didn't know the F1 Esports drivers were on it. I knew it was a thing because you can just type in a name of like an F4 driver, I should say, from like, I don't know, like Brazilian F4, and they'll pop up on there. But I didn't think Esports was on there, so here you go.
Well, let's get into it then. Q3 well and truly underway as we've got drivers exiting the pit lane, all but one of them actually. I think that's Tamas Gal that's just deciding to take an extra bit of a breather before they head out. And as I say that, they do make their way out of the pit lane. So all 10 drivers out on circuit for the first runs of the final qualifying session here. Nathan, we are in for a treat, and I can assure you of that.
Oh, we certainly are. And one thing I'm sitting here thinking is, what is it with Ulasha going out first out of everybody? Is it some sort of mentality thing? Because every session so far, he's always out first. I mean, it feels like every time we're on track, I'm following him because he's the first car out. Is that something mentality-wise, potentially? Not mainly like for competitiveness, but just for his mental state of being the first one to go? Because it's something we've seen consistently from him.
And it's something we see in PCF1 as well. It's a very consistent thing from his mindset, and I wonder if it's partially get the perfect track conditions where we've had the warm-ups, the outlaps all started and set, but actually he doesn't have to deal with drivers around him, or, you know, it's not like he's going to have to wait. If a driver makes a mistake, for example, he doesn't have to drive past that or try and avoid it. I appreciate ghosting is going to come into effect, but they don't have to mentally react to it, because even if they see something in front of them, the instinct in them is going to be come off the throttle as a bare minimum.
Or move or something. You're like,
yeah.
Yes, we'll see what Ulash can do in the first sector. What will it be for him? A 31.5. That's, I think, matching what Otis Lawrence did in that first lap of Q2, and that was a 0.5 on.
I think we've seen 31.4s.
No, the
Yeah,
0.4, wasn't it?
31.4s.
So, Ulash, nice opening lap sector, I should say, as he hits a wall.
I can tell you, Lawrence has just done a 31.3.
Oh
Danny
my.
Berejnej's done a 31.2 in the first sector.
They are flying. I mean, let's go on board with Otis. Let's see what he can do.
Purple middle sector for ULAS as well, but of course first driver across the line kind of checks out when you go and have a look at the fundamentals. Let's see if Lawrence can try and pip that away from him. Game gives it to him, data gives it to him as well by just 300ths of a second. Berejnej even quicker as well. He goes purple in the second sector. Times are coming down really quickly.
Here they are, and as Eldrim goes quickest to 0.679, his first lap of the session. What can Otis Lawrence do? It should be a couple of tenths on top of that. Up to the line, it's a 5.02. He's probably lost time in the middle and the final sector after his first sector being so brilliant. What about Danny Berejnej? Up to the line, it's a 3.67. What a lap from the Alpine driver. Next across the line will be the Red Bull of Kian Godendorp. He goes into P4 just behind his teammate on a 0.832. Then we have one of the Williams cars, I believe, up to the line. It's Nelson Alves, a 5.49. That's promising. Half a tenth away from Otis Lawrence. Then we have, it will be Luca Rapassa, a 25.9. Then it's going to be Pasquale Ranieri goes fifth. Then we have Szymon Lekomski for McLaren. What can he do? What can he put on the board? He goes into P7, so I'd say, TK, maybe P5 and down currently are on a U set, I think.
Yeah, I think that would be the expectation. They've got enough time here to go for what is a banker run or a preparatory run. So they're going to just kind of see how this goes, use it as a tester, and then we'll see those fast times really start to. I think Danny and Otis, I think they could be rather representative times, especially more for Danny doing a 25.367. But there is still time to be found for pretty much 90% of these drivers.
Indeed. And I think as well, I mean, Tamas got that lap, he had an invalidation, but he was about 300ths quicker than what Otis did through sector 2, and I believe that Otis would have been where Danny was, but he must have made a mistake in that final sector because he was really good in sector 2. So Tamas could have been, yet again, looking up for pole position or looking to be on the front row there. As the Alvaro Carreton, he also had an invalidation. That's not good for him. But Alpine have been very, very quick here. P1 and P2 so far. I mean, they're probably going to have both of the drivers in the top 5. I think that is safe to say. That battle in the standings now, for them to move up from the 6th to 4th, being 30 points back, that's starting to look realistic here. Or at least more realistic. I mean, it's going to be difficult, but you never know.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that sort of talking point of is it possible or plausible? Like, it's always going to be plausible. And when we look at standings in the situation that it is right now, is it possible? Probably not.
But it'll be close. I mean, we want to give them some optimism. We want something to focus on in this race because, I mean, the battle for second, I think, might be over because Red Bull are very quick and unfortunately, RHG have a driver out in Q2 and I mean, Tabashkel might be able to pose a threat, but 2v1, not that easy.
No, it's never a situation that you want to find yourselves in, especially when you're battling for such a championship. And by the Barris and Martins, let's not forget this. It was, tens of thousandths of seconds that he was so close to getting this this Q3 appearance by.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as well, going into the race here, I mean, Tamashgal, I think, has been focusing very personally on what he can do. Some teams or some drivers will be here to help the team. Ulash and Kian, they might do things differently to kind of boost that balance of the team and perform better as Red Bull rather than themselves. But with Tamashgal, that in the past he's suffered a lot with race pace. His quali pace is brilliant. Easily, in my opinion, top 10 on the grid in terms of quali pace in F1 sim race. Race pace is probably maybe down towards bottom 5. Race pace isn't there generally, and that could be due to confidence. I think he's confident. So he'll now be focusing on doing well in the race because he's going to be top 3, I think, quite comfortably with the lap times he's set. So his main aim is staying there. His main aim is having that race pace, not really focusing on doing what he can to help bring his teammate forward. I think there's different priorities for drivers here.
I think you're absolutely right. And we said this before about the drivers that may be slightly towards the back of the pack or those that are starting, out in Q1. It's going to be a lot of data collection. It's going to be a lot of let's see what scenarios we can play out here. to use as a data gathering tool to see how the race goes and essentially take it as feedback going forwards. But I think round about now is a good time to ask chat for their predictions as to who gets pole position, Nathan.
Indeed. So, of course, you've said Otis Lawrence. I've gone with Tamas Gal. My prediction is not going well at all. But Danny Berejnet's there. Nelson Alves is also looking at a glimpse of taking pole. Then, of course, you've got Pasquale, Ulash, Keane all in the top 6. So, any of those guys going to go for pole. And I see Ethan in the chat saying, I'm getting pole. I mean, you couldn't do it in the 5th best team event, so I would date you all here. By the way, I used to be in Ethan's team, so I'm not just roasting some random guy.
No, I'm just going to go on the fact you are roasting some randomer. And Ethan, I apologise for my my learned friend's remarks there to you. You can get some ice at your local McDonald's, I heard.
Oh, dear me. But no, it's great. Ethan's been in the chat all night, so I thought I've had to acknowledge him at some point. Been there the whole time. I mean, he's been told to grow up by Connor, the poor guy.
If you heard me laugh earlier when you were talking, that is what I was.
Is that what it
laughing at.
was?
I'll be completely. Yeah. I saw it pop on my screen. I thought I'd muted my mic quick enough. Apparently, I hadn't.
I mean, I didn't hear you, so maybe the chat will roast you for it. But okay, the first car going out is the pole sitter. This is, I mean, is that pressure on Danny or not? Do you think? Yeah, I mean, going out first, you've got to set your lap and watch what everybody else can do, and you're sitting there thinking, yes, he's not beating me. Yes, he's not beating me. And you've got to wait for 9 drivers to do that.
I'd say it's the other way around. Like, you are so focused on doing the best lap you possibly can. The goalposts aren't moving. If you're the last driver across that line and you get up to, the final couple of corners on this circuit, you are going to see that pole position goalpost move 3, 4, 5, 6 times maybe. Whereas if you're the first to set it, you've just got to do the best you physically can and then kind of hope. Whereas if you're the last, you are ever trying to chase a constantly moving goalpost.
Certainly. I mean, that first sector, he's up by 63 thousandths already. He could be on for a 25.2, could Danny, and that would put him at the moment 3/10 clear of second place. That's bigger than the gap we've seen between like the top 10 in Q2 and Q1. So this could be an absolutely barnstorming lap from Danny Berejnet, but of course, none of the drivers are trying to do the exact same thing. So we'll see what he can do at the end of Sector 2. He's up by just shy of a 10th. So he's on for a 2.7, 2.8 potentially here. But of course, he's still got one corner to go. There's literally one corner in the final sector. That is all there is in terms of what you can do in terms of gaining and losing. So we'll see what he can do down towards turn 27. He's got to get the car in. He slightly misses the apex on the entry, but he gets a decent exit, so he could work back for it that way. What can Danny Berejnet do? Up to the line, he's on pole. He increases it by another 10th. It's a 2.52 for everybody else to beat. The next to cross the line will be Keane Gonendorp. P6 at the moment, without a representative lap in Q3. Let's see what he can muster up. Can he try and go even higher than Danny Berejnet? Up to the line. Where does he go? He goes second place with a 4.26. Then we have Otis Lawrence to the line. He can't take pole position. It's still in the hands of Danny Berejnet. Next to cross the line is Nelson Alves. TK, what can he do for Williams?
Keep an eye on the Williams. They run up towards the line. Where's he going to go? It's only 4th fastest. Keep an eye on Tamas Gal, though. Your prediction for pole. He's gone fastest in the second sector, Nathan.
He certainly has, as we do have Caraton into the pits. Ulash Azildrim goes into 3rd. What can Tamas Gal do? Up to the line. He goes 4th. That is certainly a big surprise here in Q3. Luca Rapassa jumps up into the top 6 ahead of Nelson Alves. Next, it's Pasquale Ranieri. He bails out. He goes into the pit lane. And then we have Szymon Lukomski up to the line. And he goes into 8th place with a 0.559. And there we have it. Danny Berejnet is on pole. Wouldn't say it's a surprise, but I think we expected it to be the other way around for Alpine.
I think we did, but at the time, in the final time of asking, that confidence to go out first, I'm almost certain of it, is what allowed Danny to pull out what was a fantastic lap. A 1:25, 2.52, purple in the first sector. It's Tamas that was fastest in the second. It's actually Keane Gonendorp who was fastest in the 3rd overall. So a real split amongst sectors of the circuit.
Certainly, and I've got to say, that is a surprise for Tamas, and I don't want to put pressure on him by saying that, but I mean, he should have been top 2, I think, after what he did in Q1 and Q2. So, there we have it. I mean, what a gap there between the top 4. Not even a 10th. And it's separated by 3 teams, sorry. It's Alpine, Red Bull, and R8G, who are sitting in the top 4, with both Alpines on the top, at the front row. Then we have in P5, it's Keane Gonendorp for Red Bull, ahead of Luca Rapassa for Veloce Academy. Williams are 7th and 10th, with Nelson Alves and Alvaro Caraton. Then we have Szymon Lakomski in P8 ahead of Pasquale Ranieri in P9. 5 tenths off the pace. Of course, he did bail out at the end of that final run. But there we have it. I mean, Veloce Academy are going to be happy with that because they're 7th, and at least they're going to have a good chance at taking some decent points. Alpine will be absolutely delighted. And what we'll do, TK, we'll have a quick look at the standings because, of course, Q3's ended. We have to have our lobby restart so we can actually get everybody into the race.
We do. It's rather unfortunate, but again, that is the way some of the events run here on F1 25. And just a reminder, whilst Nathan sorts his game out in the background, it's the Scuderia Ferrari HP Esports team that both hold the championship at the top of 507 points, but also my personal award for the longest team name of the season. It's Oracle Red Bull Red Bull Sim Racing that are second at the moment with 386 points to their name. Just behind them, RHG Esports with 362, just 24 points separating Red Bull and RAG. The barriers to margins just down is FVR as well, who sit in fourth place with 288 points. Alpine Sim Racing just 5 points off the back of them in 5th, with Williams sat in 6th with 259. Veloce Academy stands 7th with 220 points, with McLaren Shadow, who've had an uncharacteristic season with 184 points. FRT stand with 175, and Ventari Esports, unfortunately, bottom of the pile with only 151 points to their name as we head into this finale.
Indeed. And what we'll do as well is this is also an opportunity for me to see what happened last week. We'll look at the race results from round 11 in, I believe it was... Oh, it's not round 11. It's got it from round 9. Hang on, guys. I'll get it up. 1 second.
Nathan hasn't updated the graphic, everybody.
There we go. It was Otis Lawrence that won anyway, ahead of Declan and Kian in round 11, of course, at Kota. And that is probably what's helped FER boost their selves up so high. P2. Brilliant for them, with Declan Barrett, of course, has been in esports last season for VCarb. And then we see as well Enzo Zoom. So VNT got a top 10 last time out. That's brilliant for them. But I think Otis winning by 2 seconds is big. But he's going to look at maybe going for back-to-back if he can try and get a good result here. But Danny, I mean, I wouldn't say they're going to be fighting on the last lap for it because there's no point. But if Danny's in front, does he let Otis through and say, you know what, Otis, go for 2 out of 2?
Probably not. I'll be completely honest. You know, if it was a championship thing where it's an individual championship, maybe you'd see some team orders or, you know, their version of papaya rules, so to speak. But in a team championship where it's not really going to matter much for muchness, not a chance.
Well, I've also had some information from Otis Lawrence. He lost 1.5 tenths in Sector 1.
That checks
and that's
out.
what he told me. So if it's true or not, I mean, that's what he said anyway. So, I mean, that would have been like a 0.1 for him, maybe.
It would have been enough, I think, just by the barest of margins.
And then he put head loss. So, I mean, he wasn't happy with that, that's safe to say. But TK, we've been rambling on ourselves. Let's hear from SRC. Of course, they bring us this season. They, of course, help provide some of the funds to fund the prize pool. So it's quite nice to actually hear from them. So we'll have a quick word with SRC. We'll be back with you all very, very shortly. And we are back, of course, back on your screens. Hello, everybody. Of course, we have got 15 drivers in, so we're not that far away from getting everybody in so we can start this Grand Prix. Of course, we are heading off to Saudi Arabia. Alpine start P1 and P2 heading into this, so their battle for 4th could be on at least. The battle for 5th is certainly on, I think, if they can keep that on through the race. But I remember earlier back in the season, the last time Alpine were like P1 and P2, they ran into a massive issue with strategy and dropped down to like I think it was like P3 and P5 in the end. So they've got to make sure they can fix that for tonight. That is definitely safe to say. We are getting everybody in, and we're asking to give Ethan a wave. So I'll wave to him. Are you going to join?
I've already given him a wave.
Have you given him a wave? Oh,
I have
okay.
a friend.
Oh, and also, guys, I'd like to mention I have got the best team on my shirt.
I was gonna plonk Bob here. He's our friend for the evening.
Oh, where is Bob normally actually situated?
He sits in the SRC mug up here.
Ah.
On the back shelf. So I brought him down for this evening.
Oh, okay. He's been let out of his solitary confinement of a cup.
He has. It's rather tight in there for him, I'll be completely honest. But it does make it look quite nice with SRC in the background, especially for these sort of streams.
I mean, I've never got hands on a bob, and I'm hoping one day I will.
Very
I'd love to
soft.
have a bob. Are they?
Yes. I wouldn't be surprised if Yara has a couple in Germany, if I'll be
Then
completely
I
honest.
might have to go to his suitcase, look in, and pull one out when he's not looking.
I'd be careful looking in Yara's suitcase.
I'll send him that now you've said that. I want to see what his
Oh,
reaction
please
is.
please do. He'll laugh.
Oh, dear me. But yes, the things we have to talk about when we've got nothing to do, genuinely, because we're just sitting here. We've got everybody in. And actually, you know what I'll do? Thank you to Ryan for hosting, because TK, I think, was sitting there thinking, oh, might have to host, but luckily he didn't.
I wasn't thinking. I was just going to point blank refuse. I'll be completely honest.
Oh,
I do it enough in PCF1. I wasn't doing it here tonight.
That's fair. I don't blame you. Standing your ground. I mean, I didn't have much
Yeah.
option. I got told off if I didn't, so...
I probably would as well, but I was going to try it.
Oh, dear. I mean, right, TK, pick a topic to talk about for 5 minutes while we have time.
Right, pick the PG-13 topics. Chat, give us a topic.
That's the worst question in the world.
That probably is actually the worst question. I mean, I can talk about, fun law stuff if we really want to go down that rabbit hole.
I don't think anyone knows much about law.
I know a lot about law.
I know, because you have a degree in it. I mean,
I do
be
have
a
a degree.
surprise.
You're absolutely right. I can give you some. Hold on. Let's see if I've still got my. Let's pull my my Google Doc up whilst we're waiting, because this is what chat's come to here, folks. I hope you're all ready for this.
You have a Google Doc full of stuff up for the chat?
No, I've got a fun and weird, wacky laws document.
Oh, okay.
So, you're not allowed to name a pig Napoleon in France.
You're not allowed to what?
You're not allowed to name a pig Napoleon in France.
That's, I suppose, fair.
Yeah. If you in the UK, if you handle salmon in suspicious circumstances, that is illegal.
Heard of that one?
Yeah. In Louisiana, it's illegal to play a musical instrument to get attention without a license.
Oh, okay.
Singapore, it's illegal to chew gum.
Okay, that's surprising.
Iowa, who is quite known as the butter state, it's illegal to lie about butter.
What do you mean?
I'm just going to leave it there, because there's some really, really fun ones. Let's get any more. It's illegal to stand within 100 yards of the reigning monarch without wearing socks.
In the UK?
Yep, in the UK. It's a very old law, but it still technically
I can't
carries
believe
over.
it's not butter.
There's a fun one that technically was never removed from the guidance of the City of London, where all taxi cab drivers technically have to carry a bale of hay and a fire extinguisher. One to feed the horse, one to put out the fire if the hay catches fire.
Was that actually law?
It still technically is a law, but they just never enforce it.
I mean, I could just call the police on every taxi driver for not having a bale of hay and a fire extinguisher.
I mean, technically you could. They just never. They'd never do anything for it. Like, it is technically illegal, but they're not going to prosecute over that.
That is, we've heard some interesting laws today. I mean, to be fair, I can understand the Singapore one because they're a very clean, cleanliness country,
Yes.
and of course, gum causes a lot of mess.
Yeah, very much. And it kind of relates similarly to their vape bans they've put in recently and all that sort of stuff. They're very eco-friendly and conscious and stuff like that. So it makes sense for their country.
Certainly, but we can stop waffling about random laws in random countries. We can finally look
what a
at.
shame.
I mean, I wouldn't want to talk about the laws in Saudi Arabia, that's for sure. But
No.
but we can get on with the racing in Saudi Arabia, where cars are legal to drive. So we'll have to see what Alpine can do.
Yeah.
But Danny ahead of Otis. This is going to be an interesting start. What sort of strategy do you think Alpine go for here? Do you think they kind of just defend that first and second spot, or do you think they'll actually go for side-by-side moving to turn one, potentially?
I think we're going to see no holds barred fighting between Alpine here. Like, yes, they're sat in P5 and only 5 points off the back of FER, but I think they're just going to let their drivers scrap and maybe use it as an experiment as to why they shouldn't allow it in F1 sim racing.
I mean, go for the battle. Go for the papaya. What is it? The blue rule. What is the Alpine's colour? Is it like deep blue? No.
I don't know. Hold on.
Pale blue. Pale blue rules for Alpine here tonight. But TK, I'm going to
Doesn't
throw you
have
the
a name.
deep end. You can take the start. So, God help you.
Well, it's going to be an interesting one. A short run down towards turn 1, folks, here at the Jeddah Corniche circuit, and we are very much looking forward to getting this race underway, because it will be carnage, it will be chaos, and of course it will be an Alpine starting from the front row. I'm just reading the chat again. Ethan saying it should be illegal for anyone to wear a Brum shirt. You know what? I can get behind that one.
That's I disagree with that. I mean, I think it should be legal to attend non-league games, TK.
Whoa. Non-league is so much better.
To be fair, it is.
You don't know till you know.
I can agree. I do love a bit of non-league.
Absolutely. Hopefully these drivers will ready up at some point soon, because they were told to at 7 minutes past the hour, and you know what, I've just checked my watch, it is 7 minutes past the hour, so we are mere seconds away from going racing here, folks. Under the lights in Saudi Arabia, that always provides an excellent spectacle in F1 sim racing, and of course leagues like this in PSGL as well. I cannot wait. Final race of the season, we've had a fantastic 11 race calendar so far, finishing off here with round 12. Point system slightly different to what we traditionally see in Formula 1. 35 points to the victor, 28 second, 25 go to third. So it is all slightly up in the air. I'll tell you what's also up in the air are 5 red lights for this afternoon here in Saudi Arabia. And the lights go out and we go racing. Danny Beresne from pole. Lawrence starts second. Who's going to have the better line in towards the first corner? Beresne leads a dive further back from Rapasa, who tried to make it 3 wide. Does make it 3 wide as they head through the first set of corners. But Tamas Gal and Kian Godendorp continue to fight it out 2 by 2. Alves and Rapasa now going side by side in amongst themselves. It's the RAG driver Tamas Gal who gets the better of Kian Godendorp going through. Alves gets the better of Rapasa, at least for now. They're still going side by side. And Rapasa finally making the move ahead. The 2 drivers, the FRTs that started, have dropped further down the order. They started 16th and 17th. They've had a horrendous start and find themselves right at the bottom of the order at the moment, as we see Nelson Alves trying to hold on as Caraton goes for a move on the other Mercedes further back.
Indeed, moves to watch absolutely everywhere here on circuit so far. As Caraton and Ranieri going side by side in towards turn 14, a slight bit of contact. Both go wide, both go off the track, and Tycho Hardy will be looking for an opportunity down towards turn 22 to make a move himself, but I think is a little bit too far back at the moment. Dylan Warren already up to 15th ahead of Aaron Raminguez, who started on the hard tyre, as Gabor Chontos also on the hard tyre, down to 20th place. Not been a good start for him. It's Ryan Modler defending off from Riccardo Benzoni, who's also had a poor start. But looking further ahead, a move on the cards for Rapasa to the outside of Godendorp. There's contact. Wide goes Rapasa. A loss of rear grip for him as they make their way through the final corner and back down to turn 1 they go. And Rapasa was on the charge, but chooses to move out of the slipstream to cool that engine down.
Yeah, smart racing here at the moment. We've got 2 wide slightly further back. The McLaren of Philippe Presneda, I think, just trying to hold on to their position of 13th. But Tycho Hardy, as you said earlier, has got to be smart with their defending. Of course, they missed out on Q3 by literally tens of a thousandth of a second. So incredibly close margins. He's got to hold his nerve here. Not jump the gun metaphorically, not try and barge their way through, because he knows where he started. He's sitting pretty at the moment, but he has got work to do over the next 23.5 laps.
And Gabor's race is already over, it seems, in terms of, well, the fact he's got lots of damage on his front left side of the car, but he also went flying off track at the big sausage curb into turn 10. So he's lost lots of time there and drops to 20th place, out of the DRS, and has got damage in his car. That is not good for Gabor Chontos, and for FRT's Knight, looking to fight with McLaren for P8 in the standings. But we continue on. Philippe Presneda on the back of Diego Zorzo. Dylan Warren and Race Imtiaz are closing in to make some move, potentially into the high-speed chicane. Nobody makes a move there as we continue on. And Luca Rapasa once again on the back of Kian Godendorp. Pulls to the outside, has some slipstream there from Tamas Gal as they head into turn 27. Will Rapasa make the move? No, he doesn't. Doesn't quite get alongside. Has to back out unless he can go for an up and under down towards turn 1. He's going to pull alongside Kian Godendorp. Can he make the move? Can he jump up into the top 5 as we head down to the first braking zone? Is there a move? There's potentially 2 for Luca Rapasa. It's 3 wide into turn 1. Tamas Gal gets collected there by Kian Godendorp, who goes through into 4th place. Tamas goes back ahead, and Luca Rapasa, out of all of that, made 0 moves.
It was the closest margin there. Rapasa, I think, was not necessarily as optimistic sending it down the inside as he first thought. Godendorp went offensive to try and hold off the move from the back. Gabor retires to the third corner. and I wouldn't be surprised if we do see the race somewhat nullified.
Well, for some reason, there's no safety car, but that was contact, I think, between Ramirez and Chontos, because Aaron's got lots of damage on the front right. Of course, Gabel's out, so that is not good for FRT. It was a poor start from Gabel Chontos with damage on lap 1, and then a DNF 2 laps later. As we do see a move there from Lekomsky and Ranieri going side by side. And Pasquale does get that move done and jumps up into 8th ahead of the McLaren. And then Alvaro Caraton looking to make a move as well from P10. They're heading towards turn 14.
I can confirm, I just double checked the safety cars were on off that instant, but they are on. They are going to be called out at some point during this race if someone does end up collecting the barrier, very similar to Gabor in that first instance. But for the time being, our race still is green flag running. And further back again, it's Seisman trying to look for a move on Pasquale, up for P8 at the moment. But none of them seem to be going for that early gambles, as the Alpines still quite easily control this race. Caraton, though, does manage to, or have to defend from the McLaren behind them.
Certainly does. And into P9 goes the Williams. And of course, they're also in that battle for 4th in the standings. They sit P5, around 15 points ahead of Williams. No, ahead of Alpine. So they want to try get as high as they can up that grid to try and nullify the gap that Alpine are trying to bring down. As we look further ahead, of course, Zildjian done a great job in P3 at the moment, and as we expected, with the fact that Alpine lead comfortably, Ulash has got no option but to sit there and wait for something to come his way. We continue on, and then further back, it looks like Toko Hardy was in for a bit of a move on Shimon Lekomsky into the bank left-hander. Couldn't quite get the foot in enough to go for the move as we continue our way on. Only 3 cars on the hards here, that being Zorzo, Preshneda and Ramirez. I mean, is this a bit of a clanger of a strategy, or is this going to be a masterpiece as the race goes on?
I think it's going to go either one way or another. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some very early undercuts. We saw that in PCF1 a couple of weeks ago. Some very, very early stops that actually disrupted the flow of all the other drivers around because no one knew how to react to it in the instance. But one driver I just want to point out, and I think chat are agreeing with me here, Dylan Warren, he's come up from 20th place in just 4 laps. He's made 6 positions, Nathan.
He has. He's been brilliant so far, but then again, it's not surprising to see Dylan Warren doing a great job in the race. He's always been good when it comes to race management and moving his way up a grid. Do you see Riccardo Benzoni under pressure here from Takube? Riccardo just doesn't seem to have the pace this evening, which is a big shame, as both of the VNTs are looking to team up on the Ferrari of Dylan Warren, but nothing to be made of there. Dylan stays in 14th on the back of Preshneda. Then looking further ahead once again, Nelson Alves closing in on the back of Luca Rapasa, who of course went for a brilliant move, a brilliant attempt at a move in towards turn 1. Couldn't quite make that pay off and still stays in P6 here after starting 7th on lap 1. And of course, Tamas Gale in P4, where he started. That's good for him. Of course, we've seen many times where he does tend to drop back, but on this occasion stays where he is and doing a good job so far. As Pasquale Ranieri also looking to make moves, and he's been very quick. So is Rapasa. Maybe this is a good night for Veloci Academy to try and extend that gap from McLaren behind, because they're only around 15 points back.
Yeah, there's a gap between McLaren and Veloce, about 36 points, if memory serves me correctly. So there is a somewhat sizable gap between the two of them. But it's certainly an interesting one to look at as to how they're going to attack, defend. My question that I think a few people might be asking here, what do Alpine do in terms of pit strategy? Who do they leave out as their, quote-unquote stalking horse? Because they're both running the exact same strategy, both starts on the mediums. Who's going to go long out of Berejne and Lawrence?
Wouldn't it make sense to potentially pit Lawrence first? And if the gap's big enough, that means that whoever it is that is in 3rd at the time would lose that DRS potential. Maybe that's the plan. I'm not too sure. As Lawrence does pull ahead, does go into the lead, but we do see cars pit in. Modler and Benzoni are in on lap 6. I mean, the tyre wear I know isn't high, so there's options for strategy. We're seeing some very early undercuts here, and has those two potentially changed the whole complex of this race? Is that now forcing everybody else to think differently?
This is what we were saying. We saw some audaciously early undercuts at the top level of PSGL, slightly earlier in the month or just at the end of September. So it wasn't unsurprising to me that we saw a couple of drivers come in on lap 6. They will make it to the end on the tyres. And again, who responds to this is going to be the truth tell.
Yeah, certainly. And I think you've got to see the likes of Warren, Racing, Tiaz, Takumi. They've got to respond to that call from Modler and Benzoni. I'm sure if they brought one VNT in, they're not going to leave that one out for much longer, I've got to say. We continue on, looking a little bit further down. There goes Zorzo on the back of Tycho Hardy. He's also had a decent start to Zorzo on those hard tyres. Of course, he'll be going a lot longer than anybody on the mediums. He's just going for that different strategy, trying to make something work, which it could do, but you never really know, that is safe to say. But looking further ahead, Zildrim is closing in. Is he looking for a move, potentially looking to go into the lead? No. Backs out. He chooses to stick back behind both of the Alpines and nearly taps the back of Daniel Brezhne as they head through the final corner. Does anybody choose to pit from the lead? No. They all stay out as we continue down towards turn 1. Rapassa once again looking to loo on the back of Kian Godendorp, but no move made. Race Imtiaz into the pits.
Yeah, both VNT cars, probably a very similar strategy here. They'll try and essentially DRS swap off one another. I can almost assume of that to try and pull back to the rear end of Aaron, who's off the back of the pack quite considerably, about 7 seconds or so off the back of Tachubi. So I'm not quite sure what's happened to Aaron there because he hasn't made a pit stop, but he's still on 6-lap-old hard tyres. So maybe there's a bit of a mistake there for the Racing Bull.
Could be. That's definitely more than possible, that is safe to say. We continue on. Let's see what we're going to do with pit stops. I mean, we've got 3 cars in now onto the hards. They were all near the back of the field. Only one, I think, that was below. But now, if they go for that heavy undercut, cars in maybe P10 and P11 might think about going for the pit and the undercut. Then that just keeps going higher and higher and higher. So you have the leaders going into the pit. So Aaron Raminguez leaves the session. That will be a disconnection, and that is not good for him. I mean, he is very far out of this race. But unfortunately, there'll be no way of him moving forward now with the fact he's left. I've been told that Riccardo Benzoni has damage, and that... Oh, it's not visible, but it's definitely affecting him, as we do see Denny Brezhne go back into the lead.
I was trying to have a look at some data, but I don't think he shares his telemetry, which is it's a bit of a shame. I was hoping to try and keep an eye and see how much damage he had, but unfortunately he doesn't share it, so can't quite get a complete picture on it. But we'll take the word from the engineer. There was, as you said, no visible damage from his eyes.
As Kian Godendorp goes in, Nelson Alves joins him in the pit lane. So Williams and Red Bull going early as well on this strategy, and then we'll see whereabouts these come out compared to Ryan Modler and the rest. Down towards turn 1 we go. And Ryan Modler's actually got ahead of Kian. This undercut has worked heavily. Benzoni follows in suit as they make their way through the first couple of corners. And now Ryan Modler is holding up Kian Godendorp. That is not good for Kian, but that will help everybody else who still has to pit up and around that top 5. That is big, big, big things for the Red Bull driver.
Yeah, this is a really interesting strategy at the moment, especially if Kian continues to get held behind Ryan, who, in the grandest scheme of things, hasn't got a teammate ahead to try and pull forward to. They're in it racing for themselves. VNT are down quite literally at the bottom of the championship. Are we seeing some muddling going on?
We are seeing Nelson Alves making moves. That's safe to say. He goes ahead of Race Imtiaz, of course. They were, 1 second apart, Kian and Nelson? They came out 3 positions apart. So that's how crucial the pit stops are around here. Nelson now is on the back of Riccardo Benzoni as we continue our way on. Otis Lawrence takes the lead once again ahead of Danny Brezhne, but Ulash Zildrim looks to go to the outside. Into the final corner, couldn't quite get the move done. And Danny Brezhne still keeps that P2 spot as we head into the pit lane. It's Lawrence in, it's a Zildrim in, so is not Tamashgal, he stays out. But does anybody else choose to pit on this lap? None of the leaders pit, only Ulash and Otis there.
Well, I think the Red Bull makes sense from Ulas to try and hold back and catch back with Kian and potentially work together. And obviously, we knew Otis and Danny were probably going to have to double stack or 1 under, 1 over. So maybe Lauren just likes the undercut here.
Indeed, as Kian Godendorp comes out of the pit lane, it's going to be side by side with Ulash pretty much, but Otis Lawrence goes clear. And that is what he was hoping for. Maybe that's why he pitted then, because he didn't want to have the cars who are on the undercut strategy move forward because of those overtaking each other under that DRS. And bringing that gap down. So that has worked there for Otis Lawrence. He keeps ahead of Ulash Zildrim. Ian Gundorp behind in net third, and then Ryan Modler in net 4th. I mean, what a strategy this could potentially be for VNT. I mean, this could be something that could give them a top 10 and potentially look to challenge FRT. Remember, they are P11 and DNF. If both VNTs get in the top 10, that's enough to bring that gap down, I think, between themselves and FRT.
Absolutely, and it's going to be a question point. I think the main question we're going to be asking over the course of this race now is where do they all sort of come out amongst one another? Is Danny, even though he's only got one lap holder, surely he'll come in this lap, try and hold off that undercut, but essentially meet back up with Otis and try and continue pulling forward. No, he's staying out for another run.
Certainly is. So we continue on with the leaders. Rapassa's in. Ranieri continues, so does Alvaro Caraton, so does Shimon Lekomsky and Tagu Hardy. Diego Zorzo continues on, of course, he's on a set of the hards along with Presneda. But Rapassa's in, and I'm keen to see where he comes out compared to the leaders as Ulash Azildrim takes the net lead of the Grand Prix ahead of Otis Lawrence, who looks to move back into the top spot into turn one. And I think that was a little bit of coordination between those two, just trying to bring that gap up to not worry about anybody else that still has to pit. So we continue on. It's Otis that leads ahead of Ulash, ahead of Kian. Modeler, Benzoni the top 5. And then, of course, we still have 3 cars behind which have pitted. And Aaron Ramirez, who unfortunately is 45 seconds back.
Yeah, are you trying to... I don't know if you're suggesting this, but obviously Lawrence and Ulas sort of working together here to DRS swap and pull themselves back to the main train before everyone else has an opportunity to pit? Because as much as I can see that happening, I think it could be in the best interest of Red Bull from where they stand at the moment.
Could be, and we've noticed there that Daniel Berejnay has actually pulled a 1-second gap to Tamas Gal. I mean, that gap was below a second, but now goes over a second. So is Daniel Berejnay starting to push here to get a nice gap to Tamas for when he heads into the pit lane? So I presume it could be this lap here for Danny. We head our way down towards turn 27. Of course, Tamas follows him. Caraton makes a move ahead of Pasquale Ranieri. He goes into third. They make their way through. Now, will Danny pit? No, he stays out again, but Tamas Gal will go into the pit lane.
I think that makes sense. Dropped off the back of DRS, doesn't have it available anymore. You then pit, go into that pit window again, or into that DRS window rather of that chasing train, and essentially get revived that way.
Yeah, certainly. So we'll have to see what Tamas can do from there. Of course, he will drop back through the field, potentially down to behind Race Imtiaz as we head down to turn one. What's happening here? There's battles everywhere on the field as we do see Ulash Azildrim looking to get ahead of Otis Lawrence. It's side by side out of turn 1 and 2. Bit of wheel banging, bit of wheel touching as they head their way through into turn 3 and 4. But Otis keeps ahead. Further back, Tamas Gal comes out ahead of Ryan Modler, but there was contact. But it's the move being made by Tamas Gal. Goes a position ahead. Further behind, Nelson Alves looking to get ahead of Riccardo Benzoni. Up the inside into turn 9 he goes. Can't get ahead, but that was a close move, closer contact. But Benzoni keeps ahead for now as Luca Rapassa also looks to pounce.
It's the major factor that we're going to see here, especially as the train sort of catch up with those that pit down. And oh my goodness, Nelson Alves trying to force a gap that I didn't think was there. Manages to squeeze the space. Riccardo Benzoni demoted by hook or by crook to 13th place. Alves take an absolute bow.
I mean, that was a move and a half, a bit of a forced through, but does make the move. And into 12th goes Alves. Rapassa gets ahead of Benzoni. Not good at all for Benzoni, but we have been told he has got damage on his car, so that's why he's not at top pace as usual. But now, here comes Tamas Gal on the brand new hard tyres, 3 laps better than Kian Gonendorp. He's looking to get ahead and move up into net third here for the R8G team as we head down to the final corner. He's looking where to go. It was nearly into the back of the Red Bull as they make their way through. Can he get ahead? It's going to be a drag race down to turn 1. Of course, Ulash is going to help him with some slipstream, but he also gets that from Otis Lawrence to Tamas Gal. Will the move be made? I don't think it will be unless he goes for a dive to the inside into the first corner. He does go for the dive. Kian squeezes him through the first corner. It's going to be close on the exit. It's the inside line, however, for him, as what's happened further back.
Benzoni got spun by Race Imtiaz, tried to go too wide through the first corner. The Ferrari, who I think just tried to come across the Haas as they were clearing out the corner, wasn't quite clear of them. Benzoni goes round, and it is an unfortunate tale of events.
It certainly isn't. Well, I think Ferrari are glad that it's happening now, not at the start of the season, having a driver down in 17th and probably not going to get any higher here because of his unfortunate tyre disadvantage and the fact he's got damage for Riccardo Benzoni, not being the most rememberable race for him. But we did see there the end of Tamas Gal making the move ahead of Kian. I unfortunately couldn't catch that because we did swap to Benzoni. Tamas Gal gets the move, jumps up into net third in this race. But it does make me start to think about what Danny Berejnay can do. I mean, he's going to drop back to like, what, 15? Maybe 14th? I mean, he's going to have a lot of work on his...
Yeah, it's not going to be the best race for them at this point. There's going to be a lot of challenges to try and pull through. It's going to be a case of can he go in, and he does dive in.
Marathon as well will be going in. What about Zorzo? He stays out. Tycho Hardy's in. Dylan Warren continues on the mediums. He's going for a very long strategy here.
Well, the two that stayed out up at the front, Presneda and Zorzo, obviously on the harder tyres. Warren, I think he knows the strategy. He's quite often in the chats for PCF1 explaining what's going on. He quite often DMs me what the pit strategies are going to be, which is very, very useful of him. But he knows these cars like the back of his hand, and if he thinks the tyres are still good, I'm going to trust the tyres are still good.
Certainly. We continue on. Brezhnev comes out in net P6 here. Behind Luca Rapassa and ahead of Ryan Modeler, and that was a move he needed to make because Ryan is definitely the weakest link here in this main pack, and he needs to get ahead of him as quickly as possible. Danny now will be looking for a move ahead of Luca Rapassa. Up the inside he goes into 8th. It didn't even look like Luca had to, even thought that at all, as Pasquale Ranieri makes a move ahead of Modeler, goes into 10th, 11th for Lukomsky, and then potentially Nelson Alves will be looking to make a move.
I wonder if Rapassa knew that wasn't his fight to try and battle there. It's a smart move. Veloce Academy obviously down in 7th place in the championship. They're still within touching distance of Williams in front of them, so they know the greater battle is actually not with the Alpines.
No, certainly isn't. And Luca's got to just play this race to how it should end for him. If he thinks, right, we're not going to fight with Danny at the end, don't fight with Danny now. There's no point. We've still got, 12 laps to go? They've got a long way to go in this race, and there's no point picking fights now when you don't really need to, as we do see into the final corner. Around the outside goes Ulash. He breaks way too deep into turn 27 and nearly hits the barriers. But we continue on. He has the lead ahead of Otis Lawrence. Tamas Gal looks to close in for 3rd. He's looking to try and jump up into the top 2 as we head down to turn 1. Potentially 3 wide. Ulash keeps ahead of Otis and Tamas Gal in behind. Of course, Kian Godendorp looking to close in as well. He's looking to move up into P6. Can't do so. And here goes Danny Brezhnev to turn 4. Has to back out. That could have been a trip into the barriers for him if he wasn't careful.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a move very similar to what Nelson Alves pulled off here, because he is wanting to try and get through.
He certainly is. Brezhnev on the attack again. Battery being used down towards turn number 13. To the outside of Godendorp he goes. Can he pull around the outside and make the move complete? It's going to be close. It's going to be close. He gets ahead into P7. Technically P4 goes Danny Brezhnev. Next on his target will be Tamas Gal. Of course, Otis might be working here to keep Tamas Gal close to Danny Brezhnev as they make their way through out of turn 15. And down towards turn 22 they go. Danny's got the battery being burnt. He's not going to go for the move here, but he will be looking to eye it up shortly.
Yeah, it's all about assessing a target at this point in time. He knows Gal is in front of him. He knows what tyres they're all on, rough sort of age range and sort of how long they've got left on those tyres. It's going to be making the most of an opportunity or a mistake that Tamas Gal does. And that is what Danny's going to be eyeing up here.
Certainly will be. We head into the final corner once again. All slipping and sliding through the final corner, but Tamas Gal has got a run, and Otis Lawrence potentially down to turn 1. This is a move to watch here as into the pits goes Dylan Warren. After 14 laps on the mediums, he'll switch to a set of the hard tyres to the end. See what he can do. That big offset to all the others. We continue on, so no moves being made down to turn 1. For anybody down to 15th. They all stay in single file in the same order, but Brezhnev is really bringing that gap down now to Tamas Gal and really applying pressure onto the R8G car. With the way it's going so far, you really can't see anything but an Alpine 1-2, because both of them seem like they're doing this purposely to stay behind that car for DRS. They're not being stuck there, they're just staying there.
Yeah, they're quite happy. They're chilling where they are at the moment. They've got control of the situation, control of their car, and actually you can start to see Tamas Gal making minuscule mistakes, running wide in certain corners. It's going to be, taking a curve slightly wrong, and all that's going to allow is Danny to get more and more confident, watch where it maybe repeats over 2 or 3 laps, and then strike and be confident he's going to get that pass done.
Certainly. As we make our way back down to the chicane again. Let's see. Going board with Danny. Hits the wall slightly. Goes wide. That's going to be a track limit warning for him. And also a loss of time for Brezhnev. He could have potentially been looking for a move. He would have been a 10th higher than where he is now if he didn't make that slight mistake into the barrier. Down towards the final corner we go. No move being made. But Tycho Hardy is on a charge on those new hards.
He certainly is, and I'm questioning Dylan's strategy here as we see Zorzo and Felipe Presneda swapping positions for the lead. I'm not quite sure why he waited so long to go into the harder tyres. My only assumption would be data collection, obviously being a main man doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes, but, surely, in my head anyway, it doesn't make sense to do more laps on the mediums than it would to the hards.
Maybe he's going for that big offset, though. That could be the plan here, because he's going to be very quick compared to some of the others. We'll see. The gap now, four lap newer tyres than Takubi. The gap's 4.6 as we start lap 16. We'll see what it is. The end, lap 16. As VNT, they gone for a double pit stop.
Yeah, double stop for a race. Yeah. Oh, and
Ryan.
And Ryan, yeah.
Two-stop strategy. That's interesting, but maybe it'll work. We'll have to see. Or did they pit too early, potentially, and that's why they had to pit again? Because, I mean, a bit of an odd strategy, isn't it?
It was actually, I say that Ricardo Benz only went earlier than both of them by 1 lap, so they weren't even the hardest, the oldest tyres on the grid. I mean, if you look even at the likes of who's in 7th, Keane Gordondorp, and one other driver down in 13th, so that would be Nelson Naves. Apologies, I have to switch between 2 screens to figure out who's where. They've got 1 lap newer tyres, so I don't think the offset would have been that massive between the 2 of them.
Have to see what happens there with that strategy for those guys. As Danny Brezhnev looks for a move. Once again on the back of Tamas Galotis, you can see, has a poor exit out of the final corner to bring his teammate alongside down to turn 1. Very well coordinated by Alpine. They make it Alpine 2 and 3 as it currently stands. Down to turn 1 we go. No move being made. Now Alpine can work on getting past Ulash Zildjian, as we do see Diego Zorzo and Philip Brezhnev into the pit lane. Then Warren has the fastest lap and brought that gap down by a second on the last lap. So that gap's going to come down, but is it going to come down quick enough is the main question.
On the last lap, he was actually a second and a half quicker than everybody on the grid at the moment. I'm just going to put that into comparison. Exactly a second and a half.
That's pace, isn't it? But that's what he did, wasn't it? He did that on purpose. He stayed out longer to have that advantage at the end. Of course, the question is whether he can make anything work of it. I mean, he did start P20, so anything higher than a bonus, isn't it, for him?
Oh, absolutely. And this is maybe where that kind of alternate strategy is going to come. He knows he's got longevity to do, 9-8 laps of hard push, full push on these tyres without them ever getting into that worry range.
Yep, true. So it's got to be what he can do to settle into the tyres here as you want. Ulash Zildjian now will be under a bucket load of pressure down to turn 27 because Otis is going to look to make the move. He's going to look to go to the inside. No, he backs out. Ulash again locks up. He's done that twice now in the past 5 laps, locking up into the final corner and really costing his exit out of the final corner down towards turn 1. Let's see, is there any move on the cards for Otis? He's going to pull to the outside of Ulash. Does he get ahead? He does. Further back, though, we do see Alvaro Caraton and Pasquale Ranieri having a tussle down to turn 1, but Pasquale keeps that P7 for now.
It's interesting just to keep an eye on Race Imtiaz, who of course went on to another set of the hard tyres slightly earlier. They've gone purple in the first sector, so I think the new tyres are being an advantage. The question is longevity with all the others. Like when they start to kind of plateau out and not provide as much of a benefit as he does go fastest, where's that kind of plateau sort of aim to hit?
I mean, depends, doesn't it? I mean, it's going to be within the next 4 or 5 laps, I think, for him here in terms of pushing forward. Just looking further back, I'm curious to see as well what Philippe and Diego can do on those mediums. They're the only drivers on mediums currently. So, it'll be interesting how many laps they have before they stop making moves. As Ryan Modler into 16th, gets ahead of Ricardo Benzoni, who stayed out. He hasn't gone back into the pits at all. He's going to go to the end, I presume, here on these tyres. But I think either way, race is over. And not being too good at all for Benzoni. Had to start near the back. Out of Q1. Not gone well.
Yeah, started 15th, did Benzoni. It hasn't been a race to remember in the finest. Of course, that damage is only going to kind of replicate that tenfold. I won't give any prize in chat for who's gone purple in the first sector. It wasn't even one of the new drivers that got onto the mediums. Philippe Brezhnev, 32.675 in the first sector, so don't be surprised if they come and set the fastest lap there.
Eden Tamashgal there was looking to try and catch Brezhnev off guard as Diego Zorzo goes quickest to 28.7. That's a nice lap from him on those fresh new medium tyres as he gets ahead of Philip Brezhnev in the process. But Danny Brezhnev there nearly caught off guard by Tamas Gal. He went for the move into turn 1 at the outside, and I mean, that's what Tamas has got to do here if he wants to go forward. He's got to just try and catch Danny when he doesn't expect it. There's a really good exit there for Danny, but yet again, not close enough to make a move into turn 13. So he's got to try and play his card right in terms of getting ahead of Ulash Zildrim.
That lap from Zorzo, just for you data nerds in the comments, was half a second quicker than Philippe Presneda. They're both in the same set of tyres, but half a second difference in them.
A lot of time for Diego Zorzo there. As Dylan Warren makes another move into 12th. He's now caught the main train. He's got such an advantage over others here on these tyres. I mean, surely he's got to be looking at a top 8 here, hasn't he, if he carries on? Because he's flying on the back of Nelson Alves as they head into turn 22. Got another corner to go to make a move here. Then he's into P11. He's one position away from a top 10. He's already on the back, already alongside, already ahead of Nelson Alves.
Those tyres are working to perfection for Dylan Warren, and he's finding time where others are really starting to struggle on aging.
There's a lapped car.
Oh,
Aaron Ramirez is in the way, and no, it go because he got disconnected, didn't he? No, his car's still there in the way, and I think for a moment it cost Danny Berejne that position of P2. But he goes back ahead of Ulash. There's contact into turn 1. Who's going to get ahead? Will it be Berejne? There's contact further back. That lapped, disconnected car is causing chaos, because look at Kian. He's lost a bucket load of time through there. Ulash Zildrim still side by side with Berejne. Berejne goes ahead, and Tamas Gal goes through. It's nearly too wide. It's off the track there for Ulash Zildrim, and oh dear me, that lapped disconnected car has caused chaos here around Jeddah, and I think that you might be right. Has Ulash got damage there?
Yeah, no, it was Kian, front left end plate. He went into the back of the disconnected car, and he was maybe expecting it to ghost, maybe not expecting it to ghost, but regardless, he's lost the left end plate.
Indeed, hey, what a big shame there for Godendorp. I mean, Ulash there also got caught off guard and allows Tamas Gal to go through into 3rd place. And now Kian's got a whole train following him through. We got Luca, Pasquale, Caraton all going through. Dylan Warren's on the back of Lekomsky. He's looking to get ahead and jumping up into the top 10 as they make their way through the chicane. Has anybody else got damage? Because I'm sure they must do as they make their way down to the final corner. Rapassa is on the charge. He's looking to get ahead of Kian Godendorp into the final corner. Of course, Kian's got damage. Ooh, that was nearly contacts there between both of those two as they head onto the brakes.
Yeah, Dylan Warren again in the move and getting the grooves done as he's trying to put the pressure on the McLaren in front of him, of Lekomsky, as they run down towards the first corner. I think he's got it. Moves to the outside as Rapassa gets Godendorp as well.
Indeed. So Rapassa goes through. Caraton was looking to go through on Ranieri there, but couldn't quite make the move. And Takubi's out. That's in the pit lane. Oh, I thought for a moment it was going to be a safety car.
We can hope. It's probably the last chance we're going to get for a safety car in this race. But Dylan Warren as well almost took out Tycho Hardy towards the first corner. Not quite sure. I think maybe went a little bit late on the brakes with the kickstart, but very close to spinning.
I mean, I'm watching the battle here between, I think it was Pasquale, Caraton and Hardy there, heading through into the S's section, and that could have ended in contact, definitely, as we continue on. And we've got, so yeah, both FRTs are out. So this really does give an opportunity to VNT to jump ahead of them in the standings, which would be brilliant for them on the final opportunity to do so. But the battle for the top 5 is over. The battle for P6 is still raging on as we head our way through it at turn 15. Ranielli's on the back of Godendorp. So is Caraton on the back of Ranielli. This could get quite dicey down to the final corner. Is Pasquale going to go for the move into 22? He is, isn't he? To the outside goes Ranielli. King looks to keep his foot in there. There's contact. One goes wide, and that was nearly a repeat of what happened a season ago. There is contact on the exit. Godendorp down to 9th.
Pretty wide as we head towards the 3rd and final sector. This never ends well. Jow around Jeddah into the final corner. Who's going to be brave on the brakes? Both McLarens trying it on Dylan Warren, who could be sandwiched in the middle. And that's Kian Godendorp as well, getting very loose through the final corner and the exit. How we didn't see contact as they made 3 wide towards the final corner there, I have no idea.
Diego Zorzo goes for him. If he barges into the wall and then pulls alongside and goes ahead as Ranielli and Tycho Hardy looking to battle as well for P7 and P8. Down towards turn 4 they go, and Ranielli has that one covered just for now. But Caraton, he's gone up into P6. He could potentially get back within DRS here of the top 5 as Ranielli loses to DRS. I think he could have a spot of damage on his car, and Caraton has got the DRS back once again. How, TK, have we gone from a 2.5 second gap to everybody back within a second, bar one car?
Well, this is the joys of F1 sim racing in its absolute finest form, and they say Jeddah always delivers, and it certainly has done here this afternoon. Just keep an eye visually on Pasquale's car. It doesn't look like he's got any damage. Of course, as we saw with Benzoni earlier, sometimes they have that most minute damage that can affect performance, but it isn't visible to your eye.
Indeed, and off the track there goes Dylan Warren slightly through turn 15. Must have made a mistake on entry. Still stays in P10, but looking further ahead, Tamas Gal is all over the back of Danny Berejny. I mean, this is also tactical potentially by leaving a gap between the two Alpines. But if Danny isn't careful, it could be time for Tamas Gal to try and paint here to get ahead of the Alpine. As we head into the final corner, fake send there for Tamas. That did scare Danny, but he still keeps P2. As we continue on, back down to the first corner. We begin lap 23 of 25. 2 to go in this Grand Prix. Alpine lead 1-2. Tamas Gal in third for R8G ahead of the Red Bull. Avulash Ildrim in fourth. And I mean, this battle here between Red Bull and R8G could actually get closer than we think here, because look at Kian down to 13th.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be a massive stalking horse if Red Bull continue to drop points like this, because RAG, 24 points behind Red Bull. They've got one driver in third, one driver in eighth, and obviously the slightly edited points system that we have here in E-Series, it is going to make, I think, a bigger shift than we were expecting.
Indeed. We continue on. Looking further back, Preshneda up into ninth. He's looking to get ahead of Tycho Hardy potentially. He's bringing that gap down quite nicely to the rear of the R8G. Make their way through, and actually, oh no, Philip's got damage on his car. Philip has got damage. Not good for him. Has anybody else got damage? Diego's also as well. So both cars who were looking to push forward on the mediums have damage, and that will limit their progress forward. But we look back at the leaders once again. This time, Tamas isn't quite as close enough to Danny as he was before. As we head through turn 22 and 23. Let's see, is there going to be a swap again for the lead here between these two? There is. Otis just lets Danny pass.
Yeah, I think this is a sensible race between the two of them. They know it's not going to come down here. Maybe it's been decided internally between the team which order they finish, or maybe they're just going to allow them to scrap it out on the final lap. We come down with 2 to go. We enter the penultimate lap of this race. And at the moment, as we fairly predicted, it's going to be both Alpines that cross the line 1 and 2 at the moment.
Certainly will be. 2 to go. Alpine lead, R8G in third. Further back, though, we have got Dylan Warren looking to make a move ahead of Philip Preshneda, but Philip defends it into turn 1. And keeps P9 for now. Nelson Alves, I believe, will be going for that fastest lap point. He's down in 15th.
He's got damage.
Yes, he has, along with Diego Zorza as well. Both of those two damage on their cars, as Dylan Warren, surprisingly, can't get ahead. I thought by now he would have done, because damage and older tyres.
I think what could be quite a differential here is obviously Preshneda's got the wing damage, is having to carry slightly slower speeds through the corners, but in turn the dirty air and actually the slower speeds is kind of putting Dylan Warren off the race plan here.
That could be the case. I mean, Dylan has made a couple of mistakes, so maybe he's got some hidden damage that nobody knows about. We continue on, and Caraton has really pulled that gap close to Luca Rapassa. I mean, what, 10 minutes ago I would not be saying Alvaro Caraton's on the chance for a top 5. He was down in P9, P10, battling down there. He's now all over the rear of the Veloci Academy driver. They head into turn 22. Modler gets ahead of Godendorp, of course. That 7-lap difference in tyres between those two, so it's not a surprise that Ryan gets the move done and jumps up into 13th. But let's see, is Caraton going to look to get on the move as we look to begin the final lap of this race? And it's Alpine 1-2. R8G third ahead of Red Bull, Veloci Academy, and Williams as that's a send from Caraton. Looking to get alongside, but I don't think he is. He's going to have to go for a send into turn 1, but Rapassa will know where to defend that car.
He doesn't have to send a send here. That's the thing. He's got an entire lap to do so. He has to be patient, make the move at the right time. And that almost forced, I think, Rapassa to try and go for a move on Ilzilderim just in front of him. But Caraton's smart. He knows the race is not over yet. He's got a considerable amount of corners and laps. Well, 1 lap over a considerable amount of corners to put a send in if he really wants to. And a fan favourite is that final corner.
Certainly is. As we make our way through it out of the first sector, Caraton's all over the rear of Rapassa, but he doesn't get a good enough exit out of the final quarter, out of turn 9 there to look to try and eye up a move as we head down towards turn number 13 once again. We'll see if anybody can make a move there, because Warren was closing in on the back of Pressionator, but no move being made for him at all. But the battle is back up at the front. I don't think there's much of a battle, that is safe to say, because Alpine have controlled this race from start to finish, bar a couple of laps in the middle of all of it. But what a race it's been by those guys there. P6 in the standings currently. I'm sure they'll get ahead into 5th. The question is if they can get into 4th. We'll see later on how they do shape up in the point standings. But this has been a perfect ending to E-Series Season 6 for the Alpine team. They've had a horrid season all season long, with best finishes of only up into the top 5. But this time, they're going to make it a 1-2. Red Bull did this a couple of seasons ago. Alpine will do it in Season 6. It's Danny Berejno that leads Otis Lawrence across the line to win the final round of E-Series Season 6 ahead of Tamas Gali in third for R8G. Ulash Azildrin P4 in the end for him ahead of Luca Rapasa, and Caraton in P6 for Williams. That is a nice, needed result for him because Nelson Alves only manages P16. But the question is, does he get the fastest lap?
That's going to be the question on everybody's ears. I mean, as you said, it's Benzoni that holds it at the moment. There's still a couple of cars to come across the line. I think he is going to take it. And that could be a smart play.
Yeah, Williams didn't take the fastest lap, unfortunately, away. Benzoni crosses in 17th ahead of Mexico in 18th. Take the fastest lap or not?
Benzoni got it.
Oh, Benzoni did. Oh, well, that's a surprise because Nelson was on brand new softs.
He was, and his last lap was a 29.367 versus the fastest lap of a 28.199.
Oh, that's a mistake made, I think it's safe to say, for Nelson there. That is the big surprise. But what an ending that was. I mean, well, not the ending of the race, but I mean, the middle point was where we had most of the ball in action. And at one point, we never know who was going to end up where because there was cars flying all over the road. There was snapped, disconnected cars in the way. But in the end, our top three, it's Alpine and R8G.
Yeah, very much so. It's been, I think the best way to say it is a thrilling race all round because nobody's quite known which way that was going to go. And I'm so glad it did go the way of Alpine, and it makes sense why they inverted the cars in such a way. Only made sense to finish in the order they qualified. Obviously, Berejno was first on in qualifying. There was Lawrence who was second.
Indeed, and we just have the full grid, the full results there. We have, of course, it was Alpine 1 and 2, R8G third ahead of Azildrin in fourth. Luca Rapasa rounds off the top five ahead of Alvaro Caraton, Pasquale Ranieri, Tycho Hardy, Philip Presneda, and Dylan Moore on the top 10 here in this race after starting last. Decent effort from Dylan. Then we had Diego Zorzo, Shimon Lekomsky, Ryan Modler, Keen Gunendorp, Imtiaz Alves, Benzoni, Raminguez, and then the two DNF'd of Takubi and Gabor Chontos for FRT, and hopefully beat to a couple of drivers for a quick interview. Hop ourselves onto the screen quickly and hopefully inevitably wait for someone to join.
Fingers crossed. It's always nice to have a chat with the drivers, especially those who did well in qualifying, we'll say it that way.
Yes, certainly is. So we'll just wait for a couple of those guys to pop in. But of course, Ferrari wrapped the championship up a round ago, so not much more we can say about Ferrari. We kind of did their season celebrations around early. But of course, talk about Ferrari quick. Their season has been insane. Absolutely insane. I mean, there's not much better you can do apart from like winning every race, I suppose, for Ferrari.
No, and they were what, four races off it over the course of a 12-round season. It's been incredibly close. They won 2/3 of the Grand Prix that we've held.
Indeed, but we are going to drag in Tamas Gal. Popped in for an interview. Tamas, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, come in. It's been nice seeing you in the interview, and I've seen you a couple of times over the past month or so. So it seems that you started to be a little bit more comfortable now in the race. So explain that one. How did that go for you?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very happy how the race went. I think I did a very good race. Medium stint wasn't really that important. But then, like, I really wanted to go either late or early. I wanted to follow first one of the Alpines, but then we saw that Kian is boxing, so everyone went longer. Then we saw Ulash and Otis pitting, and we decided to go with Danny until we can. And then I made a mistake in one of the laps, so if I continued, then I would have lost a lot more time without DRS. So we went, I think, lap 10, and Danny went lap 12. Then we came out in net P5, overtook. I think I did a crucial overtake. I think it was one of the Ferraris, where he was like already on 5-lap world hard, so it was very crucial to get ahead of him. And then it was just basically waiting a tiny bit. I really wanted to overtake Kian straight away because I knew that his tires will be very bad. And then Danny came through as well, but I knew that I won't have a lot of chance because he will have even fresher than me. So I just tried to be behind Danny. Then they started to fight, Ulash and Danny. And then I saw the opportunity of going around the outside in the S section. and then I kept the position until end of the race. Unfortunately, it wasn't possible to overtake. It's just literally a wall. You can't get closer, unfortunately, but it is what it is. P3 is still a good result.
Yeah, definitely.
After that quality.
And a quick thing to mention as well, what happened with that disconnected lapped V car? Did you get caught up in that or not? Because all of a sudden we just saw a lapped car and everybody just trying to pile through.
Yes, I saw him, but I think he was ghosted. I think he was ghosted, but I'm not sure. Like for Ula, she was trying to avoid him. Maybe it was not ghosted. I couldn't really see. But yeah, it was a tiny bit annoying.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can imagine so. I mean, I think it was depending because a few cars actually got damaged from it. I think it was Kian got big damage from that lap. So it was probably quite a big moment in that race for a few drivers because Kian then lost positions that allowed you to kind of have a bit more comfortability along with Ulash up ahead. But of course, I mean, over the course of the game, your pace has got so much better. I mean, your quali pace has always been there, but your race pace has improved so dramatically. I mean, is it the game that's helping, or is it just what's clicking for you to make that pace improve so much?
I think just overall practicing throughout these years, like I still remember in F1 23 in Tier 2. I mean, I think you were commentating a few times. In Tier 2, I could get myself really comfortable, but then in F1, I saw the level, jumping from the race pace between Tier 2 and then Tier 1. And then I saw, okay, in quali I'm easily top 5, but then in the races I'm just losing positions every time. So I needed to realize that at that point I needed to do a lot more race practice than quali practice. And since then, like throughout F1 24, it has also got a lot better, and then into F1 25 it got even better because I'm still just doing more and more race practice than quali practice. And yeah, that's just what helps me with experience, and with practicing it will get much better. There is still room to improve. I think that my racecraft and race pace has got a lot better since a few games, or even in the past months, I would say. Even in esports, I had the feeling that I'm letting people go very easily, even though if they're on fresh tires. And I think Silverstone E-Series was the first time where I showed that I'm not giving up the place very easily.
Yeah.
So I'm showing some racecraft now as well, and also some race pace. I also like this race. I still tried to go on for a move on Otis and Danny, but it's just impossible, unfortunately.
There's not much you can do on this game in terms of making moves. But anyway, mate, congratulations on 3rd place. That's all from me. Anything from you, TK?
No, nothing. Just stellar drive from yourself, mate, and you should be proud of the season.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Tamas, and hopefully we'll see you next season, or I presume on the different tiers of the other leagues as well, because of course this is the final race, so I'm sure TK will see you in PTF1 at some point.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully on the podium again.
Definitely.
not only on the grid.
No, on the podium. Go for the win next time, mate. But thanks for joining. Have a good one, bud.
Thank you. Good night.
Yeah, nice chat with Tamas Gal. I mean, he made up for the fact we didn't get our other 2 wins, so we had a nice, good chat with him and got a real insight into his race and what could have happened for him over the course of that Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. But I mean, it's always a shame when you have to end the season, because I mean, it's going to be quite obvious that I don't think we'll be back game with E-Series, unfortunately. I think it will be likely be on F1 26 for E-Series, but don't care anything. Anything could be possible. Been a brilliant season, of course, CK. You've only been in the commentary box once, I think, twice maybe.
Twice, including today, I think.
Okay. I mean, from the 2 races you've been in, what would you say has been like a good takeaway from EC?
I absolutely adore the team championships, especially at this level, because you have got such.
We have Danny and we'll drag him. We'll get back to the waffling in a second. We've got Danny. He's joined in. We'll have a quick chat. Danny, can you hear us?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Certainly can. So welcome in, mate. Great to have you in here for a quick chat. I mean, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Little bit tired, not gonna lie. Only slept 4.5 hours today.
Ooh.
Why?
And I went to bed way too late and then had to wake up early to help my parents. So not optimal, but maybe this is what helps me to reduce my body nervousness. It didn't have the capacity to do any shaky legs and stuff like that. So especially after the quali, I'm super happy, because pure pace is always what's the most important for me preparing for an F1 esports season. And yeah, I think I think it was there today.
Definitely. I mean, qualifying was brilliant. I mean, that lap was really good at the at the start of the first laps of Q3. Of course, you put that lap in, and everybody else followed through, but nobody take that time away. I mean, would you expect him to take pole tonight? Because there was lots of drivers that definitely had the pace as well.
No, to be fair, I really didn't expect, and this was my personal best lap time of the day. Today I was not so good at the practice session, and I even changed a little bit my tire pressures during the lap because that's how I was not comfortable with the setup. And it managed to work out nicely. I improved more than 3 tenths from my Q2 lap, even though in Q2 as well I did 2 runs, which is not very usual. So I'm happy to finally be there when it matters and not topping Q1 or Q2, but the most important session.
I mean, one question I've got to ask you here is, obviously you finished with Otis just behind you in P2. Was that a team decision? Was that an internal decision? Or was it just kind of how it unfolded on the racetrack as to who came out on top?
Well, Otis helped me tremendously during the race because he was saving tires, slowing the field down a little bit. So I didn't have that big of an undercut and didn't lose as much positions as I maybe could have if he doesn't help. So I'm super grateful for that, because in this game, in the dirty air, every single move was super difficult. And then obviously I felt like I took pole. I had the faster tire at the end, so I overtook him and tried to give him the RS to defend from the cars behind. In the last lap, obviously, he also tries to pass me, but I had about half a second or even more tire advantage. So if he would have done that, he would already be the world champion in esports without a doubt, because that's physically should be impossible. So I'm very happy because this is my first win of the game, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Certainly. Well, Danny, thanks for popping in, mate. It's great to have chat with you, and hopefully when we do come back for the next season of E-Series, we'll see you driving for Alpine here once again. So, of course, I wish you the best of luck in PTF1 and hopefully for the upcoming Sim Racing Championship. So, have a good one, mate. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Great to talk with Danny there after his conclusion of the race. It was a very interesting race for him, of course, in terms of qualifying. Well, I'd say more of an interesting qualifying rather than race for him, because he didn't have to do much in the Grand Prix. But as we were saying, it's the worst part when you come to the end of a season, especially when it's a series that isn't going to be back in a click of a finger. But no, I think it was a really good season. Of course, it'd be a lot easier for me to ask a question to Corey about what he thought of the season, because, I mean, you've only been here twice.
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I'm sure Corey would love to be here to share his thoughts, and I hope whatever he's up to this evening, he's having a good evening. I was going to say, just before we got Danny in, that it's that nice element of a team championship at this level where you have got something different. It's not the drivers out for themselves. They are trying to do the best for a team, and it's something that you don't see that often, especially in competitive league racing, such as, PSGL. If you look down the lower tiers, it is every driver out for themselves.
Yeah, it certainly is. So it's nice to see that team element come, but also give opportunities to lower down teams in the scene, like of FRT, Venturi, to show what they can do and really put a, try and put a stop to some of the bigger teams, which I think hasn't been the case that much this season. But in the past, we've definitely seen it happen quite a few times. But I think it's time to end everything off. Of course, I want to say firstly a big thank you to SRC Sim Racing Centre. Of course, without those guys, as I've said every time, it's important to me, wouldn't be here. They helped us fund over 3/4 the prize pool for this season. So a big thanks to Yorit, Tice, etc. and etc. over at SRC. Of course, a big thanks to Connor, Cryptomite, who run this whole series, making sure everything runs to plan. And then, of course, the drivers, teams, etc. And then commentators. There's been 6 different commentators this season. Many of them jumping in for races here. I mean, I've been here for 7 of them, but I've had 2 races off where I've been to watch football. Never won a single game of those 2. Then I've been ill and stuff in the past. You've been here for a couple. We've had Corey, we've had Omi, Byron as well. So of course, a big thanks to everybody in terms of the commentary broadcast team. But before we go, anything from you, TK?
No, just absolutely fantastic seeing all the drivers out there today. And again, it's a pleasure and a refreshment seeing something slightly different in the community. And I really do wish that we see E-Series back on your screens as soon as we possibly can. And a massive thank you for me for having me on the show and having your trust and confidence as always.
Indeed, it has been a pleasure as normal. Okay, but for the final time, guys, big thank you for joining. Of course, thanks to everybody in the chat, drivers, teams, commentators, owners, everyone. Been a pleasure as always, and hopefully we'll be back with another season in the near future. But for now, have a good one, have a good night. Next time.